is the lowest string still going to be in the chord, or is that going to be a dissonant note? Does that make any sense?
You're playing like a power chord on the second string, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like a four fingered, it would be a
Like
bar
a bar.
chord.
Yeah, a bar chord on the
Right.
second string. A bar chord
So
on the second
like,
string is a minor note, so your E will actually be the seventh of that note. So it'll actually be a dissonant note, but it'll be within that minor key.
the finger, like the note that my second finger would be hitting if I used four fingers, or if I barred from the second string, which is A, I guess, right?
Oh, that's no, that's yeah, okay, that's your that's the ninth of it. So that's actually that's actually a dissonant note. That's what makes that a minor
Yeah,
chord.
yeah. So it
So if you
breaks down.
let go
You
of
can
that,
do a power chord can go. You can play a power chord on the first or second string, but a bar chord would break down effectively on the second string because the note that your second finger was covering would be dissonant, right?
well, it's dissonant, but it changes it to a minor chord instead of a major chord.
Okay.
That's all. That's all it does. And if you were to let go of it, that's the thing is, if you let go of it, it would be an eighth. So that would be a considered a dissonant note out of the minor. But if you dropped one more down, that'd be a seventh, which would be your major. So it's you can
Okay.
do it. There's a couple different ways to look at it. But yeah, basically, if you're on the second fret and you're playing a bar chord, that's the minor chord, uh, or that would be considered the minor chord because of that dissonant ninth. Does that make any sense? We just went live 5 minutes ago, so
Oh, really?
yeah. I think we had
Guitar
two
talk.
viewers. I think we had two viewers, but I think we lost them right away.
Oh,
So
I
hey
didn't
everybody,
realize we were live there.
this is the Left Coast discussion hole. We're just testing out the set. Me and Chris are catching up. He's quizzing me on some guitar trivia, and I'm trying to remember my theory. I'm sure my guitar teacher is shaking his head wherever he is, rolling in his grave. I'm sure. Um, so
I'm eating a steak.
yeah, totally. It's interesting. So I've been listening to, I listened to about the first 13 minutes of G-Man's Atheism as a Joke, and I had
Mhm.
a bit of a response. I mean, G-Man tends to think that that anecdotal evidence is bad evidence, or that experiential evidence is what atheists are considering invalid evidence, and that's why we don't believe, and that's why he gives this as a reason that we're a joke. That's why we can't be serious, that we're sort of fooling ourselves. And I mean, I think I disagree, right? Like, I think that experiential evidence is like compelling to the person who's experiencing it, right? I think that's a pretty good assumption to make, that when we experience something, we probably are pretty convinced by it, anyways. Generally our senses are pretty reliable. Generally our cognitive senses, once we've tested them a certain amount of time, we kind of can trust them fairly well, right? So I think there's good, good point to say that experiential evidence is pretty good. But it's weird because he says that my anecdotal evidence isn't evidence, and that's why you're not convinced, and that's why it's a bad reason. And I think he's got that a little backwards, right? Because my anecdotal evidence is that he's mistaken in what he's experiencing, right? I've experienced the same things that he's describing, and I think that he is experiencing something and interpreting it wrong, as I once did.
Yeah.
And so in that way, like I can have my anecdotal evidence, and that's the reason that I don't believe. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to be an atheist and believe in that anecdotal evidence can be convincing or compelling in some way, right?
Yeah, but I think like experiential evidence is good evidence for the individual, but then a critical thinking person would then go and see if that lines up with the rest of available evidence, and then to convince someone else of this, you would need demonstrable evidence. So, I mean, I think the heart of the matter is that G-Man doesn't understand what evidence is. Period. Really.
I think it's just he's misunderstanding what each level of evidence can be applied to, right?
Yeah.
I think he's taking the fact that his experience of something is very convincing to be the idea that something convincing is evidence, right? Like I think he's kind of got it backwards. he's
Yeah,
convinced, and then he calls what convinced him evidence. And I think that's maybe where he's going with it.
that's his latest argument, is that people believe something, therefore there must be evidence for it, which is totally putting the cart in front of the horse and not at all convincing to anybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's this kind of this weird minefield where he's kind of wandering into redefining what we consider compelling. Just by saying I'm compelled, you can't really make it compelling. It's very, it's, I don't know, so crazily backwards. I don't even know where to start. And then he started going into evolution, and I had to shut it off. I couldn't stop yelling at the screen.
Yeah, he hasn't come very far in his understanding of evolution.
It's amazing, that he can kind of acknowledge that there are changes, that there are things that are going on, that over generations things don't remain the same, and yet can't wrap his mind around the fact that a million years is a fuck ton of generation. That's a fuck ton of opportunity for change and variation, and for things to be selected out, and for certain things to be bloom and flourish. So it's very it's odd that he can't quite expand his mind to encompass those concepts.
Yeah, he's admitted to mutations and adaptations, but he can't get his head around how those could add up to speciation. I'll be right back. I gotta do some dog maintenance, sorry.
Hey, no trouble. While you're there, I'm going to try to get us flagged for copyright infringement. Do-do-do. So everybody, if that didn't work, I'm probably a little bit low right now. Let's see if I can get this to work. So, I'm curious. I'd like to get some people's input on exactly why, all this drama's been happening. There seems to be a lot going on that I'm not quite aware of, and I wish I was more informed. But I am just kind of picking up on the edges of it. So we'll have to see how this works here.
How do we get a copyright infringement? How do we get?
I'm trying to get us copyright infringed.
Oh,
See if it works. I'm working really hard to do it right now.
yeah.
Forget it. My computer's about to burst into flames, anyways.
I made a comment about on G-Man there where he doesn't have a grounding in science, yet he somehow feels qualified to dismiss a scientific theory like evolution. That's what kind of boggles my mind, is just that type of cognitive fallacy. Like, I'm dumb and I don't know much, so I must know more than the scientific community.
Yeah, it's weird because on one hand they're admitting that I'm no scientist, I don't science isn't my bag. But then on the other hand they're saying, oh, what these stupid scientists thinking like that they can observe these things and that they can research this stuff, that's clearly contradicts the Bible. So obviously, silly scientists are the ones who are wrong. It's really it's a weird dissonance because on the one hand you're saying like I'm not really that intelligent, but on the other hand you're critiquing the very thing that you don't understand. The thing that it's weird that they kind of equate not understanding it with it being wrong. That's
Yeah.
especially when on the other hand when it comes to their theology they equate not understanding it with it being godly. That's the mystery. That's the eternal spiritualness.
And if they were to go to school and become qualified and do experiments and produce repeatable results that refuted evolution, they would be among the richest, most famous people to have ever lived. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an entire industry based on proving everybody else wrong. Like you're working really hard. Like there's this whole infrastructure to critique everything that they do, and yet these people come along and think that they can look at it from the outside and take the products of years of research and somehow dismiss it as well, you don't know everything, or you weren't there, or that doesn't really make any sense to me, therefore that's wrong.
Yeah, he was making this, trying to make the argument that the fossil record requires faith.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Just absurd.
I mean, but everything requires faith in that case, right? Like, I mean, it requires faith for me to trust that my shoes are by the door where I left them, right? Like, I don't have constant proof of that, so therefore I must have to have faith in that. It's pushing the definition of faith to a point where it actually makes no sense, right?
Yeah, it's not the definition of faith that the rest of the people in the Great Debate are using.
How are your just to change the subject there? How are your puppies doing over there?
Well, Wenda's not doing very good. She has congestive heart failure.
Yeah.
So yeah, she if she gets too excited, she falls over, has a little dizzy spell, and falls over. So that's been really tough, and there is no cure. But she's on diuretic now, so she's drinking lots of water, and that's helped with a lot of the symptoms. She doesn't have, she's not coughing anymore. Um, but yeah, life's never going to be the same.
Poor little one. And the other one's doing pretty good. Showed you or whatever.
Yep, she's looking good. I gave her spring trim a couple days ago, and now she looks like somebody else's dog.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah, she was looking pretty shaggy. Left a pretty good winter coat on her.
But yeah, she looks like a totally different person, kind of like you, actually.
Yeah, weird.
I think it was the glasses that kind of, like, when you take your glasses off, you look like you're in some kind of soap opera star or something like that. It's really quite intimidating.
It's like, it's surprising. Some people say about the, Superman putting on glasses, taking off glasses, but with me, I think it's actually true. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't really recognize me without my glasses on.
Yeah.
They're very defining glasses.
I think when humans have like this amazing ability to recognize and remember faces and see faces where there aren't even faces, and then I think I believe the focus is usually on the eyes. I think it's kind of related to that.
Probably true, actually. Kind of draws away from it maybe a little bit, shadows my eyes a bit.
Yeah, I think it just your recollection of faces centers on the eyes.
True, and it's weird because I've had a lot of people say like I'll draw my glasses onto pictures that aren't me on my user images, and
Yeah.
people will actually like tell me like that looks exactly like you, and I'll look at the faces and I know it doesn't look like me. It's just you put these glasses on any face, I think it looks like me.
I should get some glasses like that, maybe.
Uh-oh. I don't know. I gave away my secret. But yeah, it's yeah, this is pretty good. I wish G-Man and MG42 Pillbox would show up. I did send them an invite. What, you got him blocked or something?
No, I didn't. The only person I have blocked is Matthew Belland because he makes me sick to my stomach.
It can be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it doesn't make. I don't know. It's not that he's frustrating. I think he's just a disgusting person.
I think I don't know. I'm not entirely certain he's 100% genuine when he goes into those conversations. I think that's my problem. But it does seem like he holds a lot of them. So I have to kind of assume that he is fairly interested in having the conversation anyway.
Well, he's belligerent, and so it wouldn't surprise me if he said some things that he didn't believe just for the sake of, argument.
That's the sense I got from him too. But, hard to tell sometimes.
But yeah, I better make sure I have a mute button if MG42 is coming in here.
Raise a good point. So do you what about Jason Burns? I'm kind of I mean, I've been a bit out of the loop, but I have been trying to catch up a little bit. His attitude seems to be fairly apologetic. Is anybody taking that into consideration, or is it are we kind
It's not apologetic enough. He accused Fiona of being a stalker in his video, and she suffered real world repercussions from that. And he's not being apologetic enough. He's saying he doesn't know what he did, but he doesn't condone what happened. He hasn't apologized for what he did and explained why he did it and explained why he was sorry.
yeah? I mean,
This isn't your usual Jason Burns fuck up. This is him slandering somebody, um, and really causing harm. So it's not just going to blow over this time.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when it has real world consequences, there has to be an effect for him too, right? I mean, he could be feeling at least a small amount of the brunt of the, there should be some sort of, I don't know, uh, recourse, whiplash. I don't know, what am I looking for here? Some sort of like response to it, right? I mean, there's really no reason that he has to continue to lie about people in this way, right? The only real reason to kind of make those accusations is to continue the narrative of Jason Burns being oppressed and taken advantage of. And I think that's what's kind of pissed people off the most, right? That this isn't out of the ordinary for Jason, but I think this is an example where it's actually an effect. And take responsibility for that action.
Yep.
Cool.
There's consequences, and you can slander me if you want. I don't give a shit. But if you persist in that behavior, one day you're actually going to do somebody some harm. And every once in a while, he does manage to do some harm, and there needs to be repercussions when he does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the apologies that I've seen of him, they're very much Jason Bourne style apologies, where it's everything is couched in how much abuse he took, right? I mean, he apologizes, but he doesn't. He meant what he said is what he says in the next sentence, right? And so it's weird to apologize for lying and then in the very next sentence say that you meant what you said. You know, it's like the liar's paradox, right? I mean, we're sort of forced into this position of trying to trust what a liar just said. And I wonder if he realizes the position he puts us in by doing that. That we kind of have to make our choices about how much to trust a guy like that. It's I just don't know if he realizes what it does to the interactions that he's going to have later on YouTube. Because it seems like he's threatened to leave YouTube again, but I think we all know that's probably not going to happen.
He hasn't threatened. He's been promising to leave on a daily basis, only to come back the next day, and with his revisionist video trying to rewrite history.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a case of a case of just constantly googling your own name, right? I think that can become very obsessive behavior. I think, especially when you think that this is somehow your reputation that's on the line. I think he doesn't realize that reputation is earned. It's very much if there wasn't all these videos out there, we wouldn't know anything about Jason Burns, right? Like it's this weird I don't know. He's sort of feeding the cycle by continuing to make these videos, and that when he was offline, I mean, I think there was a lot of the fervor surrounding him sort of dropped away, right?
Yeah, and he couldn't stand it.
He even admits that once he decided to stop attacking atheism, his subscribership dropped to nothing, right? Like, I mean, that's sort of the story, right? And I think he deep down realizes that it's his interactions with us that keep him relatively YouTube famous. I don't know. That's probably not even a good description of it. Relatively YouTube known would be probably better. or at least able to interact in the community. It seems to me like he's depending on our views to make himself feel better about the interactions. So I mean, I don't know. It seems like in a lot of ways, he needs us to reinforce his position, right? We have to attack him, and I think that that's the problem, right? Is that he's kind of cried and whined so much, people have stopped attacking him, and now he's got to, at some point you have to create boogeymen. Even the smallest thing has to become a big issue, right? Making mountains out of molehills and all that.
We've got a JD here. Can't quite tell if it's good JD or bad JD yet.
There's a.
Oh, it sounds like the good JD.
I think I'm referred to as the good one. Yes.
I
don't remember who came up with that.
I definitely.
Yeah, JD Kane is the evil JD.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely said it before I heard anyone else say it, but it doesn't mean I invented it. And we got Alan Dion.
I'm testing out my phone.
Yeah.
Code.
Oh,
You're
cool.
the man on the street.
Yeah, I have to go out with the wife.
Apparently, Alan and I are like almost neighbors.
Yeah, we're probably 40 minutes from each other.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? Why don't you just drive on over to JD's house with the wife there, and do a little report from JD's house.
There we go. Actually, I'll be his neighborhood the next Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah. You're a biker, are you?
Yeah, we have a big bike show, a big bike event every Friday the 13th. So the next one's in June.
Bikes and guns, yeah.
Gotta love them. And well, you can't see, and my pickup truck and my pet dog in the back seat.
Oh, hey puppy. Are you driving right now, or do you
No, I'm just waiting in. My wife's in the store picking up something, so.
Let's see the dog again.
Let's see. I can't tell if you can you see him? Darwin up.
Yeah.
Focus on. Yep. Oh, nice.
Is he some kind of what is he? A hound?
Kinda. He's called a Louisiana Catahoula. He's from Louisiana.
Okay.
They're a hunting type dog.
Cool.
He kind of looks like a pit bull except for a long nose.
Cool. Oh, we got a cunt in the room. What's up, Owen?
Verified, certified. I've got the paperwork.
We love cunts on the East Coast discussion hole.
Well, that's why I'm here.
None of the members participated now.
Let's see.
I had heard someone talking about Jason Burns, and there can't be a discussion about Jason Burns without me being there. So.
Yeah, how's it going there, Lenny? I noticed. I caught up on one of the hangouts. You sounded pretty angry at him.
I was a little upset.
Doing the same amount of rage, or has it kind of quieted down a bit? I mean,
I've calmed down just primarily for the fact that I don't know how much more my heart can take at this point. The finite amount of rage I can have before I have a stroke.
One thing I will say, like regarding the ethics of Jason Burns and what's happened, is that I do think that we need to be careful to not adjust our behavior based on how other people reacted to his slander. Like his slander is slander, and it deserves a certain consequence. But then I don't think that consequence should go up and down with how people react to it. If you know what I mean. It's like, to make an analogy, it's that I kind of hate it in hockey. They'll have these rules where, someone slashes somebody, and then the length of their suspension will vary depending on how badly the person is injured. But the same penalty can result in a variety of different consequences. And so I just think that the penalty should be the penalty. It's not a very good analogy because it breaks down. But
alternately, it's the opposite. When somebody's clueless as to slashing someone, do they still get the same penalty if they had their back turned and didn't realize?
Yes.
Exactly.
Jason's clueless to a lot of what he does. Honestly, clueless.
Yeah.
So we blame him for stuff because we wouldn't do it, but he just has no clue when he does something, You know, it's just there's something missing that he just doesn't clue in. Like deleting videos to him means it never happened. We all know it does. It doesn't work, but he doesn't. It just he's clueless to certain things. Like that video I posted again about his family. Sorry to say, but he learned something from that family of his, and I don't know what to say, but that his upbringing is part of where he is today.
That video is definitely quite telling. You know, if you imagine growing up and you're trying to impress that family.
Yeah. I didn't quite hear. Did it sound like he says his mother's a doctor? So she probably was kind of well. They're probably kind of well off.
I don't know about that. He said his mother in one video was one of the top clairvoyants in the country. So those don't usually go hand in hand.
Yeah. But even it was his uncle said that when they were cooking up the sausages. Well, you know your mom's a doctor, so she knows. So I'm not sure if it was just a joke or.
Yeah, I mean, if she is, then she must be estranged from the family, because there's no way you could grow up with a doctor for a parent and have no cognitive ability.
Yeah.
But also another thing that was telling in the sausage video is how he's doing one of his rants to the atheists, and his family is complicit in him making one of those videos in front of them. So it's not a question of does his family know that he's doing this. Apparently they do.
Yeah. Well, like I said, yeah. The other video I posted about the political views, and then they got into the Lord Jesus Christ right afterwards. So it's like, okay, now I can kind of see where Jason's upbringing has led him.
Yeah, it's entirely possible he thinks he's being actually quite liberal in his views.
Yeah. But alas, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling quite so prepared to I don't know. I don't want to say forgive him because I don't. Jason needs an education in the fact that, okay, his videos were funny, his videos were cute. Now his videos have actually caused some harm to someone in real life, and he doesn't appear to care. He says he's sorry and he doesn't support whatever action that's taken. Well, that's fine. He's not accepted responsibility for the fact that he put something in the internet and someone else, an entirely innocent person, suffered as a result. And he doesn't seem to think that's unacceptable or worthy of apology.
Well,
I agree. I don't think he's properly apologized for it at all, and I think that there should be consequences for him. But at the same time, I can still try and empathize and understand how he came to be in the position that he's in. It's not forgiving him or making excuses for him. It's just trying to understand the problem.
Sure.
I don't want us to be seen making the mistake that Jason's video and what he said is in any way making him responsible for the actions of somebody else.
Yeah.
That person chose to do whatever it is that they did, and I'm not even sure what exactly happened. I know that it's serious and it involved the police and so on and so forth, but Jason can't be held culpable for somebody else's decision.
I disagree. I think that he's not entirely responsible. There's a lot of people responsible, but he is guilty of slandering her, and then his slander led to the person taking the action that they did. So he's not responsible for their actions, but he's responsible for slander, and that's why slander is a problem.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the person who committed whatever the act was should be the recipient of the level of anger that people are feeling rather than Jason. But I'm not suggesting that Jason's not worthy of some backlash here.
That's the distinction I was trying to make poorly, was that, when Jason's guilty of the slander, and the consequences should reflect that. The consequences shouldn't vary with what other people do and do not do because of it.
Yeah, the way I see it is he's guilty of slander, or he's guilty of being clueless, not malicious. He didn't intend to be malicious. It's an outcome of something because he doesn't know what he does will cause issues. He's just clueless as to the reactions that could happen. So it's not maliciousness, it's cluelessness.
Mm. I think
Yeah.
there's some malice in there myself, because he said that people told him to do it, and he had to know that there was a reason that people told him to do it. He wasn't trying to make the world a better place by slandering Fiona. So there is malice there.
Yeah, but as soon as he realized that BK and gang were trying to twist him into doing stuff, he backed away. So at least he was able to do that.
But even there, it doesn't all add up, because he said, if you watch his video today and earlier ones where he said that he decided that he didn't want anything to do with it, he talked to Paul Hartley first, and he explained to them what was going on, and so he says he decided he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He then proceeded to join their hangout twice. That's not having anything to, that's not having anything to do with it, right? Even if you don't, even if you just sit there like a potato and don't say much, you're still complicit. You're not, you're not removing yourself from the situation by joining the hangout. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, but we're all guilty of it. We're all tempted to join at certain times ourselves. It's hard for me to say 100% I would never join one or contact Jason. I might in the future contact him, but it's hard to say to stay away 100%.
I'd be happy to invite Jason right now. John, did you invite him, or?
I've sent out one invite. I'm going to send out 2 more to my next.
We invite Jason to every single hangout.
That's true.
If he's in the right mood, he'll join. But I'm logging out because now I'm in the car and my wife's in the car, and we're going to head out to the pier and walk the dog.
Is that
give us a report from the pier?
Yeah, if it's nice, I can re-log in.
Hi, Alan's wife.
Okay, good. Okay, everybody can say hi to my wife. Here we go. Is she on there?
Hi.
Hey, girl.
There she is.
Wow, she looks really happy.
Okay, folks, enjoy your conversation. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jason Burns, I would say slander is the content of 50% of his videos, right? I mean, we're not exactly talking about something that's new here for Jason Burns. I mean, it's just the fact that someone took that slander to a new level, took that slander and acted upon it in a negative way, and I think that's what we're really mad about. But you're right. I mean, that we probably should have been madder about the slander beforehand. I mean, we probably should have been putting up a bigger fight, and with Jason Burns, it just seemed, to only increase the amount of animosity that he would put out, right?
Well, it's not a question of... What's very important to keep in mind here when it comes to dear old JB is that we've been doing this. We've been doing this dance to this guy for a couple of years, and as I said already, now it's gotten serious. Now it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
His crappy behavior has cost somebody else, and he needs to realize that. That's the only thing I'm holding his ass to the fire for. I want an acknowledgement that his silliness has cost somebody else, and it's no longer a game for him.
What has he done?
Well, it's an accusation of stalking, is what happened.
That had real life consequences.
Yeah,
So-
I kind of stopped paying attention to that idiot a long time ago. I don't know.
It's common with Jason, and I agree. I mean, this is a pattern, and I think we should put our foot down here and at least point out to him that this is unacceptable, right? That despite what you may think you're justified in doing and justified in broadcasting, your words will have consequences, right? I mean, they're being recorded and you're putting them online. People are
Lawsuits?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's lucky that we're not talking about lawsuits and court cases here, because
If somebody were to accuse me in public of doing something like that, I'd be on the lawyer. There'd be no warnings or anything. It'd just be the law right then and there. Fuck it. Boom. Done.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of this weird line, I guess we're kind of treading with Jason, right? He's got this idea that that's sort of how to address atheism online. That's sort of his style, right? That's kind of what he does, and I think it's a serious issue, right? his rewriting of the narrative includes people who are trying to participate in the online community. And when he rewrites the narrative to paint those people in less than in less than truthful lights, it has real effects on the people who are viewing that from the outside, right? And I think that's yeah.
I mean, I know he has a habit of taking down his videos, or is that the Brett Keane only I'm thinking about?
No, Jason Burns is constantly rewriting his own past, right? And you can really hear it in his videos, right? That he's very insistent on telling his side of the story. This is my side of the story. This is what actually happened. And he'll put out a few videos when he feels like he needs to rewrite it. And it's really easy to, I don't know. It must be easy for him to forget what he just said.
How many of his? Okay, I don't know. I don't expect anybody here to be able to answer because it would take some time to do it. But if it's been kind of downloaded and documented as to how often this guy kind of rewrites his own past, if it could actually be shown from one video to another, then I would just say just get a lawyer, deal with him right then and there. That'll slap some sense into him.
Yeah, I mean, the archive channel exists. Those videos are out there, and I know we don't have 100% of the videos, but we've got a lot of them, and we've definitely got the ones from the recent past. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt anymore that all those videos are saved somewhere. So I think we've kind of gotten it to a point now where it's almost impossible for him to rewrite the history without someone having the ability to go back and check it. And I think that's maybe what scares him a bit, right? I think that's why he kind of rails against the archive channels so heavily, is because I think that scares him that his behavior is going to live on in history, right? There's almost no way to erase that sort of behavior from the servers.
He's come to the conclusion that his behavior is actually going to cost him something. That if he wants to do anything with his life and try and be taken seriously as a big, important, big boy academic theologian, someone's going to Google his name, find the archive channel, and realize, wow, this guy's a fucking idiot, and that concerns him. Right.
It's true, and I mean, but there's a lot of Jason Burns that's kind of wrapped up in being a victim too, though, right? It seems like he really wants to have the world against him, right? He kind of views himself as the underdog, as the lone fighter standing against the world.
He'd love to be. He'd love it.
And I think that's very much how he's kind of trying to construct the narrative around him. You can see that with a lot of his conspiracy theories, and the idea that we kind of are always getting together and plotting behind his back, or that there's some sort of group mentality that we're all subscribing to. And
I tried to explain this to him, but it's either he can't listen or he won't listen. Now, I've been in private with him before, and he said he's understood this. He said that he knows that, oh no, I know that's not the case, no, that's not the case. And then he'll make a half a dozen videos saying that it's the case, and he'll appear on Hangout saying that it's the case. And it's maddening. Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah, like I have a hard time, taking him seriously when he starts talking as if that there was an atheist leader who could contact me, and like let's say I was the archive channel, like there would be an atheist leader who could contact me and tell me to take the videos down or private, that I would consider it seriously, right? I think if I'm in that position and Thunderfoot sends me a message telling me to make all those videos private or to shut down the channel, I'll tell him to fuck off just as quickly as I would anybody else who asked me to do that, right? If I thought that was the right thing to do, I would do it. But if not, then there's no chance or no authority that could make me consider it, no matter where that authority was coming from, whether it be atheist or theist. So I think there's this weird disconnect. Like he's got to on some level realize that we're all our own person out here. That we're not subscribing to a group mentality, and we don't even have a singular authority, much less a leader who you could say has any sort of authority in the community, as it were.
And we're not allowed to get him. He's not that important.
Yeah.
I do know though that if anybody ever did have a motive to get him, it would justification to do so would be Alex. Because I remember a few years ago, Jason made some really bad videos accusing Alex of being a drunkard or something like that. Or
He said he was lazy, that he didn't have a job when he does, and a whole bunch of other just nonsense.
yeah, if that's undocumented, that could be brought forward too. Like basically, whatever persecution Jason gets, he brings on himself, and I've kind of figured bringing that into the public, like through court transcripts or whatnot, after he gets his ass sued. That'd be the best way to disabuse everybody that yeah, this guy's a victim. No, he's not a victim. He's a he provokes.
Provocateur?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, French word.
I mean, he's clearly looking to instigate some sort of response from people. I think that's clear, right? I think or maybe maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the stuff that we respond to is the negative stuff, and when he's out there doing his I'm going to put air quotes again, scholarly videos. I'm trying to get rid of my air quotes. Sorry, that's the last ones I'll use. I swear. When he's doing his scholarly videos, I mean he's not getting the views that his diatribes on atheism are getting, right?
Sure.
And so I think we're almost complicit in encouraging his behavior, and I think we just need to maybe just acknowledge that a bit, that we are sort of encouraging his interaction with us, right? But I don't know if we can be completely to blame for his reactions, right? I mean, for how we react to him in the community is what I'm trying to get at here. So I think you guys are right. Like he's bringing a lot of this onto himself, and I think that in a lot of ways he probably knows that and probably welcomes it in a certain light, right? To kind of create this character for himself.
There's nothing like being a victim for Jason Burns. There's no better feeling in the world than being a sad, downtrodden. Everyone's being so.
He was talking about how making a social comment saying that our crybabies would amaze the rest of the world.
Piece of shit. Oh, okay, I'm back.
That's funny.
Sorry, my hamster just fell off my wheel here, and I got smoke coming out of my bottom of my computer. All right.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. Fire's under control. So you were sorry, I missed a little bit there. What were you saying there, Winnie?
What was I saying? I was just complaining that he's had too much of our patience already. This is really for me the straw that broke the camel's back. Before he was a nuisance that was fun to make fun of, and then he just became an easy, I've got nothing else to talk about, pot shot target, and now he's really crossed the line, and I don't think he knows or cares how badly he's crossed the line. And it's
Do you have the link to the video where he makes his whatever accusation or something? I may want to watch
taken
it
down.
later.
It has been taken down.
Not mirrored
To my
anywhere,
understanding,
right?
it's taken down. I'm so sorry?
Was it gathered or mirrored anywhere or whatever?
I believe all of the mirrored versions have gone on private at the request of Fiona.
Why? Was he attacking her?
Right, when he was making accusations about Fiona? Yes.
Okay. I didn't know who he was making.
Oh, I'm so sorry, mate. Yeah, no, he made
accusations.
accusations that Fiona was stalking.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know anything about what he had done. That's why I was
Sure.
asking.
No.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's what he's done. And yeah.
Supposedly Josh Shelley and his buddy there put him up to it, which doesn't alleviate him of any guilt. But
Well, I haven't seen or heard any evidence of that. I haven't heard anything about that.
It makes sense though, right? He's like, why else would Jason all of a sudden care about Josh Shelley?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's not become victims of arguments from ignorance, though.
Quite right.
It's not an argument from ignorance. It's me putting the dots together.
Ugh. I don't know. Without a clear indication of like what exactly is going on, I'd say we're a little hard pressed. But I think it's it makes a lot of sense that those two would probably endeavor to use Jason in that way.
He was talking before the video came out. He was talking about how he was going to had a new partner, and then it was going to be a new show, Joshua Shelley, and then then he comes out with the slander. So, I know I said why else would that happen, but I'm not making an argument from ignorance. I'm saying that's where the evidence points to in my mind.
Who's Joshua Shelley? I don't think I've ever dealt with him.
You're not missing much.
His pen name's Richard Raspberry.
Ah, okay. He's the guy who has a sister who makes those so interesting YouTube videos I've heard and contemplated downloading.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so they're really worth. Now that is worth your time.
Shit, this is live. Damn it. Oh well. Nobody knows my face.
I don't give a shit if they know my face or not. Those videos are awesome.
Yeah, those are great actually. I've caught a couple of them. They're really
They're good for 45 seconds at a time.
Yeah, you don't want to overwork it.
Has anybody yet commented on McDropout's new look here? Looking good, bud.
Oh, thanks.
Let's get him to take off his glasses.
You look like a young punk.
Look at you all cleaned up.
Yeah, I did it in solidarity for you there.
Yeah, almost as shocking as Lenatar. Yeah.
Oh my god! And I tell you what, as soon as I did it, I realized I made a horrible mistake, and I'm immediately trying to grow. I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Been there.
I started. I left a little Hitler mustache for a few minutes. I think we all do that, don't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't.
Yeah, it looks.
You take a moment and you appreciate it, like, look who I look like.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody looks like Hitler when you put it on. It's amazing. But yeah, absolutely. It was quite a shock to see all that hair on the floor there. And years of growing down the tubes.
What does the girlfriend think of it?
She was a fan.
Cool.
Yeah.
She loved him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
She was a fan, or she is now?
He is now. I had to do a little convincing. I no longer remind her of her father, I guess. So the what else is going on in the community right now? I noticed who else? G-Man has a few. Like what's going on with the G-Man meltdown? Has anybody been watching that or?
He's had a meltdown?
Yeah, well,
you'd have to educate me here.
Constant
Oh, is this the red line thing? I thought I
Uh-huh.
picked up some buzz about that.
Yeah, Chris was letting me know about a red line hangout where G-Man kind of made it clear that his understanding of evolution is I don't know, moving backwards.
Oh, it was evidence, right? Wasn't it his version or definition of what evidence means?
Yeah, I was kind of mentioning at the beginning of this broadcast that he's kind of got this weird idea that we're dismissing anecdotal evidence or personal experience as evidence of something that happened, right? It's really quite strange, but he kind of mixes up the idea that personal experience or experiential evidence is good for the individual, but it's not really transferable to others when you're explaining it, right?
Yeah, it's not reasonable to expect others to think that it's a justifiable reason for them to
Narrative of the anecdote.
Yeah.
So it's really
Otherwise, look at everything else that we'd have to believe in too. How many people out there claim to have seen Bigfoot or claim to have been anally probed by aliens?
No.
right. And I'm always kind of the opinion that we should be hesitant to tell people that they didn't experience something, but we should be hesitant to believe what they are interpreting that experience as. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to take people at their word when they say they've experienced something, and it's only because I've kind of experienced things, right? And like when I was interpreting it the other way, I would have, if someone had told me I hadn't experienced it, I would have reacted negatively to that. You couldn't have told me that I didn't experience it. That experience was so convincing. It was the only thing that could convince me, right? So it's sort of it's weird to hear him say that atheists don't believe in experiential evidence, which we do. I think he's taking the idea that we can't explain that to anybody else and kind of misapplying it, right? When we're trying to convince other people, it has to be demonstrable. It has to be able to be transferred in that way, or repeated at least.
If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the things that Redline was taking umbrage with regards to G-Man's evidence horse that he's riding right now is that I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there who would suggest that there's no evidence for the proposition that God exists. It's just that it's not good evidence. It's not convincing evidence. So because he doesn't meet that obstacle, he thinks, well, everybody agrees with me that there's evidence for God, therefore he must exist. That's where I think Redline is having the issue, that because G-Man says unchallengingly almost that there's evidence for God, and couple that with his definition of evidence, which isn't wrong. I mean, he's looking at the dictionary, so I can't fault him for that. But he is failing to realize that there's qualifiers within that definition for what evidence could be. It could be evidence can be good evidence. Evidence can be bad evidence, and that's touched on in the definitions that he uses, but he's missing the point.
Yeah, I like how you guys ever listen to Aaron Raw or read what he writes? Like, according to his definition of evidence, there is no evidence for a God, because I would have to look up to see exactly how he frames it, but yeah, basically, G-Man wants to play fast and loose with what is considered evidence, and Aaron Raw runs with a real ironclad definition of evidence, and most of us are somewhere in between, and it depends on the application, how you want to use the word. But I don't see any demonstrable evidence of any gods.
Right, which is what I'm hinting at here is you can say that you've got evidence for a god, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good evidence or convincing evidence.
But to put something into evidence, right? Like what evidence is there for the Christian faith?
Well, the anecdotal stories that people have that convince them that their belief in a God is justified, that's evidence to them. It's not evidence to us. It's convincing for them because it happened to them.
Yeah, it's not something that can be put in evidence, though. It's just anecdotal testimony.
Well, I mean, that's not entirely true, right? I mean, what they experience is physiological too, right? I mean, we could actually view and observe the physiological changes that were happening in their body, given the right technology, right? And so we know that
But then you'd only have
the change and the experience.
Yes, but that would only be evidence of a physiological change. It wouldn't be evidence of a god.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Like, I mean, you have to make a leap to claim that person's physiological changes are now being caused by a supernatural being or something external to themselves that's unobservable in any other way. That's one of the things that I find least convincing, is that people kind of assume that our brains are spiritual detectors, or somehow we're picking up on things in this other plane, right? I think it's pretty clear that we can't really be trusted to make that leap from the unobservable to a physiological change in ourselves. But maybe not.
Sorry, I'm trying to do two different things at once here.
No problem, Lenny.
I'm being a professional.
Hard to walk and chew gum.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Rub your belly and pat your head. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about having a standard of evidence, isn't it? It's about saying to yourself, this is what I'm going to accept and nothing less, and holding to that.
Right.
And it's about understanding. My kind of horse that I beat on these things is the trying to get people to understand how deceptive your mind can be, even to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your subconscious works very independently from your conscious mind, and sometimes they don't agree. And in your disagreements, your subconscious wins the tiebreaker. and your mind can get you to believe just about anything that you're comfortable believing, as long as it alleviates the stress of confusion. And knowing these things and keeping these things in mind, I don't see how you can believe any kind of supernatural claim. If you can hold these things in your mind, and when you consider what you're actually going to need as evidence, and when you know that your mind is sometimes going to fool you, it's out to fool you most of the time, then I don't see how any kind of supernatural claim, at least in the merits of just hearing it or even experiencing it on your own, is enough, anything like enough, to accept the proposition as true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's also about, I mean, setting a standard of evidence, but I mean, maintaining that standard of evidence through all the aspects of your life, right? Because you'll notice a lot of theists end up sort of allowing that standard to slide when it comes to the theistic claims, and I think that's the danger of holding anything in your mind as sacred or beyond question, right? When you do that, you kind of allow an exception. Instead of that standard of evidence you have with everything else in your life, you allow this thing to slide by, right? And I think a lot of times that's sort of a defense mechanism, maybe. A way of getting away from the cognitive dissonance that belief would entail, right? So you just have to kind of come up with an excuse to drop that standard of evidence that you're holding in everything else.
Well, I think when we talk about what kind of standard of evidence is acceptable for at least a high-functioning person, you have to consider how much you actually care about the proposition that's being made. How important is it? And second thing you have to consider is, has this ever happened before? Of course, singularities do occur, and you have to consider those as possible. But we don't live in a universe where people rise from the dead. We don't live in a universe where people walk on water or duplicate foodstuffs. And for that reason, that you automatically have to take the back foot and say, I'm going to reject this proposition until I'm forced to accept it.
At the default position.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
unless you're fucking Matthew Belland, who thinks that Christianity is the default position and that babies are born as theists.
Babies aren't born as anything. They're born as babies. They're not born as atheists. They're not born as theists. They're just born. For heaven's sake, can we... it really riles me up when people say, oh, we're all born as atheists. No. We're all born sleeping, screaming, and pooping. We only have 3 modes of operation.
All right.
No, I disagree. I think that you're born a passive atheist, and I don't think it's a good line of argument. But if you call not believing in a God being an atheist, I think babies qualify under that definition. I mean, they're passive about it because they haven't been confronted with the notion of a God, but I think technically that it's true.
Well, if you limit your definition to just what you said there, Chris, then yes, I would agree with you. A baby is an atheist, but so is a rock, and so is a tree, so is water.
Exactly, they're passively atheistic.
I reject that proposition that you just made there, Chris, primarily because I think that to believe or not believe something, to believe or disbelieve something, is a matter of assessment. You have to think about these things, and babies aren't capable of doing that just as rocks are not.
The capability is what I would put in front. Something that is capable of believing in a god or gods, but lacks that belief.
It's tough to tell. I mean, that's a delicate line where you're walking about capability. Though,
I don't think you need to put capability in there. Whether you're capable or not, either you believe in a god or you don't.
Well, it's something that has the cognitive capacity to weigh in on the issue either way.
So I'm a person that's never had a God belief. At what point did I become an atheist?
Well, as soon as you made an assessment of reality and the source of reality, and the source of the world around you. If you've been educated in science and never been given any kind of theological proposition, and this is all leaving aside the fact that, again, your mind will make something up for you, if in lieu of anything else, I would say that you weren't necessarily an atheist in the traditional sense. You have to be
What?
able to assess the God proposition in order to reject it.
But it doesn't have to be a rejection. It's I don't believe in a God. I don't have a belief. I never had a belief.
It's an interesting question, right? And it's sort of, I think it's sort of thrown off by the fact that we have a term atheist, right? Like in a way, it does sort of imply the negation of theism, right? And so
Yeah.
in that way, it would sort of preclude the idea that you would have to have considered theism at some point. But because it's a negation of a belief, we don't have a special term for a unicornist or a Bigfootist, right? So
What if you're talking about rejection of a belief, that would be active atheism, and if you're talking about a lack of a belief, then I would call that passive atheism.
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, right?
No.
Lacking, this idea of lacking a belief is sort of interesting to me because you don't necessarily. I don't necessarily believe that well, that's kind of weird word choice. I don't necessarily think that you choose what you believe, right? I think you kind of accept what you believe. You become convinced, and I think that's sort of an active process. That's not necessarily. I don't think you can call lack of a belief an action, right? It's almost an inaction.
There's a point where I didn't believe that I didn't believe because I didn't have thoughts at all, and again, I agree. It is a dumb argument to make because a baby is an atheist just as much as a rock is an atheist. But the fact of the matter is that I've never had a belief, so it's just how can you say that I wasn't atheist if the definition we're using is a lack of a belief?
Well, if you're going by the definitions that you were talking about earlier, then I don't think anybody would take issue with you identifying yourself as an atheist at any particular point in your life that you're referring to. It's just when I think of what an atheist means, it's a position on a proposition, and it doesn't seem to me that an infant has the capability of getting to a position on any proposition other than feed me, I'm hungry, and cries.
Yeah. So you just shifted to a different definition, right? So the definition that I use is lack of a belief.
Right.
And so according to that definition, I've been an atheist ever since I was born.
Sure.
So,
I don't take umbrage with that at all.
So I don't disagree with what you guys are saying, but every time you guys approach it, you're using a different definition than I am.
Yeah, I think the terminology might be a little bit different. I would probably use a term I've heard floated around before, like non-theist.
Now, the problem is you need the cognitive ability to be able to evaluate a claim before you can actually have a stance on it, and that's kind of the issue here.
Right.
Yeah, but you don't need cognitive ability to lack a belief.
Actually, you do, because you need to be able to put a value judgment on whether something is accepted or not until you're capable of putting that kind of value judgment. And in the case of newborns, etc., they don't have the cognitive ability to even have the notion of a self. The ability to understand, or so to speak, empathize or understand that others have thoughts and this kind of stuff doesn't come until later development, around about 2-3 years.
No, see, I disagree because I'm not talking about making a judgment. I'm talking about lacking something.
You're talking about ignorance to something. And
Sorry?
You're talking about ignorance in that case. And ignorance is something a little bit different than actually making a value statement on something.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about value judgments. I'm talking about a lack of a belief. And so, sure, you're ignorant at the same time.
But
I think what Chris is trying to say is that the pathway of getting to a lack of belief in something may be different from one thing to another. I think what he's saying, though, is that it's no different to say that a baby has a lack of belief in a god, then a rock has a lack of belief in a god. And if that's as far as his definition goes, then there lies the term atheist.
Yeah, but at the same point, what I'm basically putting in here is that saying that a rock or a screwdriver is an atheist is kind of a meaningless way to define atheism.
I agree. I don't choose to tackle it that way. I think it's kind of a nonsense argument to say all babies are born atheist. I don't think that gets anybody anywhere.
Let me just give an example here. Maybe this will help clear things up a bit. It probably won't, but who knows? It might. Well, part of my education growing up was that you had to pick a culture. It was like a world culture class, a little small thing you had to do, part of your social studies stuff, and you had to pick a culture, and you had to go learn as much as you could about the culture. And I picked Norway. And I focused specifically on Vikings because let's face it, I'm 12 years old and they're awesome. And I looked up a bunch of stuff about the Nordic pantheon, and I discovered that there's this Nordic god named Fenrir who was a wolf, and the Nords thought that when the world would end, Fenrir would come and devour the sun. Now you can imagine how they reacted when they saw their first eclipse. They freaked out.
Yeah.
They would stand on their beaches and on their longboats and on the roofs of their buildings, and they would clamp their swords and shields together to scare away the wolf. And when the sun began to reappear after the eclipse was over, their bias was confirmed. They had scared the wolf away, and they were the greatest, mightiest warriors of all, and it was all fantastic. Now, I'd never heard of Fenrir before. Never heard of it. No idea that such a god has ever been proposed. Prior to doing this exercise at school, could we honestly say that I was an atheist with regard to Fenrir? I don't think you could, because I had never considered that god before.
Well, did you believe in any other gods?
Well, at the time, yes, but that's just because I was a Catholic.
And you weren't an atheist.
In the Catholic school.
He
you
meant
weren't
in
an
regards to this one particular god.
Right. I'm isolating this one here.
It's kind of like saying if you don't know that somebody's proposed the idea of the Loch Ness Monster, then you couldn't really state whether you believe or don't believe in its existence. You're unaware that there are even people that have this notion.
Right.
And that's really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a value statement. You have to have that, so to speak, the concept of mind beforehand. And I don't think you can talk about belief or lack of belief in something that's not quite a thinking agent on the level to be able to evaluate such claims.
But what you're doing, 13, is you're using a slightly different definition than me. I'm using the definition of a lack of belief, and you're using value judgment, and you're talking about cognition. I'm talking about a lack of something. You don't require cognition to lack anything, and being ignorant of something doesn't preclude you from lacking something.
I think what 13 is saying is that the cognition aspect of it should be present if the word atheist is going to be meaningful at all.
Yes.
Let's not forget also that theology doesn't just necessarily mean it doesn't just mean a belief in God. It means that God has instructions for you. He has a personality. He wants and expects things.
And up until the point that a infant develops that concept of mind, which is the understanding that there are other thinking agents out there and all these kind of things, you might as well be talking about a rock as opposed to a baby.
I've already agreed that. I've agreed that it's not going to be good for any kind of argument, and I agree
that's all I wanted you to. Okay, cool.
I agree the word's not as useful when termed that way, but what I'm saying is that I have never had a belief in a God, and I define atheism for me as a lack of a belief. So there was no point at which I all of a sudden began to lack a belief. I've always lacked a belief. So in that way, I've always been a passive atheist.
Oh,
so
and I hang on. I'm not.
It's not going to convince anyone of anything, and I agree. It's just, I was no more an atheist than a rock was an atheist. But the truth remains that I've always lacked a belief my entire life.
But that's not really where my objection is. I have no issue with that whatsoever. My objection is that something that can't make that value judgment, I don't think it's reasonable to refer to that as being an atheist. For example, I don't think it's reasonable to refer to a rock as an atheist. That's all I'm going with that.
I'm saying the
So-
distinction is between passive and active. So I don't. As soon as you start talking about value judgments, you're not talking about what I'm talking about.
And so your question earlier was at what point did you become active atheist? Was that the term that you were using?
Well, no, there was definitely a point when I became an active atheist, and before that, I was a passive atheist. So, according to my definition, I've always been an atheist, even when I was a baby. So I understand why people don't want to use that definition, but I think it applies to me.
I mean, I think oftentimes that whole babies are born atheists is really more of a reaction to the claim that babies are born theists, right? I mean, I know when I was growing up, my parents told me that all children knew that there was a God. You know, that I was born with with a knowledge of the deity inside me, right? And I took that at face value. I assumed everybody had that, and so I think it can be an important way of, I don't know, maybe even just shining a light on the fact that people aren't born with this knowledge for a lot of theists.
Well, the thing is, in accordance to what we know about child psychology in the early development years, a very young child is not even capable of having a God notion, because all they can really comprehend at early stages of things is they can pick up and touch and actually feel and see. The idea of something that's, outside of that, something that's ethereal or ephemeral or what have you, is something that they wouldn't be able to even comprehend until a certain age.
Right, or even a mind independent. That there's other people out there who are independent of what's going on with in regards to their own experiences. That is something that gets developed over time with interaction and development and so on. So I would agree. It would seem preposterous to suggest that they have a concept of what God is.
Yeah, and we don't really need to go to the all atheists or babies to get there.
Right. How did we get on this?
I'm not sure, but once you got on it, I'm like, ooh, I want to step in.
It's a popular topic.
Well, I've studied
it's conscientious, right? Like, I mean, we have to be kind of like conscious about or conscientious about how we approach it and like how we use the term atheist in these discussions, right? And I think it is important because it does tend to get mashed up in these discussions a little bit.
I think that kind of the point is that with the word atheist, it's not sufficient to describe your position to just say that you're an atheist, because there's a number of different definitions of the word itself and a number of other tags that you can apply to it to make your position more clear. It's not an explanation as a one-word answer.
Well, that's why when I do refer to myself as being an atheist, I specify which definition I'm using that term in. And because it applies under that one specific meaning and no others. But at the same point, what it kind of comes down to when we start approaching things with the all babies are atheists or default positions, et cetera, it's kind of disingenuous, because there can't really be a default position on something like that until somebody has the cognitive ability to have a position one way or the other. And the way it comes across to people in the other camp is that, the theists are trying to claim the babies for themselves, and so are the atheists. And that's where people just start needlessly butting heads.
Can I muddy the waters a little bit here?
Oh, go for it.
I'm going to throw out a word, and you guys feel free to explain it to me, because I'm like lost on it. I've read on it, but I have no idea what it means. Igtheism. Go.
Igtheism, the root of it is actually... Oh, wait, hang on. I'm going to let somebody that isn't an igtheist comment on this, or technically isn't agnostic. Hang on, I'm going to shut up now.
I haven't a fucking clue what anyone's talking about.
Igtheism.
Igtheism is about God not being, like the God concept being not able to be understood by us.
It's a trap.
I mean, for me, it's almost synonymous with like sort of like nihilism in a way. It's not synonymous, but I mean there's a lot of similar attitudes where just because you can't. I mean, you can't be aware of it, or you can't know exactly what this God concept is or what it actually means. And in that way, you're sort of banging your head against a useless brick wall. You're sort of never going to get to that point of full knowledge of that deity, as far as I can tell, anyways.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, no, I don't know if anyone's ever bought a used car before, but yeah, it sounds like crap to me.
Okay, do we have anyone else who wants to weigh in before I actually explain it?
Yeah, go ahead there, 13.
Okay, the root of igtheism, the ig part, is actually in reference to ignorance. It's ignorance on this God topic thing is kind of where it kind of starts off with. It's sometimes correlated with theological non-cognitivism, which basically is that this entire God notion is completely meaningless, so why are we wasting our time discussing it? To put this into a further explanation, if you were to go up to somebody and ask somebody what is a dress, and their answer was things like, well, it's pretty, and it's red, and it's long, and women like to wear them, you're talking about the properties of the thing. You're not actually saying what the thing is. So ultimately the question is, what would a God even be? What would constitute a God? What does this word really mean? And because everyone has their own view of what it may or may not be, and all we have is properties of the thing, instead of anything that definitively explains what it would actually be, then the whole term becomes completely meaningless. So instead of suddenly saying, I believe in this or I don't believe in it, it's saying, well, the notion's meaningless anyway, so how can I make any value judgment?
Here's a question for you, 13. Do you think that being an agnostic atheist would be mutually exclusive to being agnostic? Or can you be all three at the same time?
Well, the thing is, on the position of God, I'm agnostic, not agnostic, because I don't think the word has any real value. I think the word's almost completely meaningless. People just start throwing crap under their definition of this word, but the word itself has no real meaning. They're just, oh, well, it's this and it's that and it's love and it's meaningless. It's completely meaningless.
My question is,
So,
is it mutually exclusive with agnostic?
Well, hang on, just let me finish up here. So instead of saying that, I can't say whether a God exists or not, so to speak, the more agnostic position, you're saying, what the hell would a God even be? Which, as far as I'm concerned, is a little bit of a step further. So instead of saying, I don't know whether such a thing exists or not, I'm agnostic on that position, you're saying, what the hell would that word even mean? This word, what is it? Please give me a cogent definition, and no one really can, so you're wasting your time to even entertain that one might exist, or might not for that matter, because it's a pointless word. It's a space holder.
Uh-huh. You're a space hole.
Space holder.
Sorry.
You need the dir.
Sorry.
Come on, Len, I thought you were used to dir.
Oh, sorry. Hear me.
But another viewpoint in terms of the agnostic position is that everyone assumes too much about what this God thing would even be.
Yeah, I mean that's oftentimes what I've noticed. There's a lot of assumptions that go into when people refer to God. They oftentimes have this idea in their head, but I don't think I don't think it's similar with everybody. Everybody seems to have a very different concept.
Yeah, I mean, and if we have, what is it, 6.7 billion people arguing over what this God thing would even be, what's the point in trying to even entertain it at that point? Because nobody has a coherent definition.
I had a thought just creep into my head, and let me see if this is kind of zeroing in on what the concept of atheism would be. That you've got a theist and an atheist in the front seat of a car, and they're at a fork in the road. One is saying the right way to go is left, and the other one is saying, no, the right way to go is right. And the atheist is sitting in the back seat going, guys, we're all blindfolded. We don't even know if we're at a fork in the road.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, I think I understand.
That's actually a fair way to put it, but it's almost like, in some senses, it's like instead of using the word God, insert some nonsense word. Do you believe in what? What does that even mean? Oh, well, do you believe in it or not? What does it mean? Do you believe in it? Shut up. Tell me what it means. What is it? And that's kind of where the discussion lies. What
Right,
is
but I mean,
the thing you're talking about?
But isn't that why they start to rely on, well, God is love, or God is, justice, or God is all good, or, describing properties of this deity? Like, isn't that the point of theology then, to attribute these properties to this deity, right? And in that way, I mean, we can become more precise when we're talking to that individual about what they believe that God concept to entail, right? It's not impossible to narrow it down, right? I just feel like I understand your point that it's sort of an incoherent concept in a way, but it's easy to convince me of that because I'm an atheist, right? Like I think that when I was a theist, it would have been hard, it would have been harder to convince me that atheism is a coherent concept.
Well, here's the thing: it's a very pretty blue Eagleblatts. What does this tell you?
Well, pretty and blue, I know those things, but Eagleblatts.
Well, what's an Eagleblatts? Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I suppose that is the problem. I mean, it always kind of pulls back to further terms that are so ill-defined, right? I mean, it's almost like it has to push itself back into the mystery, remain hidden. But I mean, wouldn't some people just call that, the mystery of God? God works in mysterious ways, and it's beyond us to write.
Yes, that's absolutely the mystery of Eagleblatts. Absolutely.
That's all part of the what I would call theological abuse of the human condition and of mental state. Telling you you're too stupid to get it, so don't try is that you're gonna have to try harder than that.
Yeah, because we must all embrace the Eagleblatts.
Must we though? Do I have to?
I mean, it's just bizarre at some point. I mean, we have a concept of what a dragon is. We have all these legends and myths. And if somebody were to say, draw a picture of a dragon, you could do this, right? So if somebody were talking about a, planet-eating space dragon, at least we have a concept of what a dragon is. But this God thing, okay, draw it. What would that even look like? I don't know. What would it be? We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, you're wasting my time asking me to do something that's ridiculous.
I agree.
And it wasn't until I started looking into what atheism is supposed to be that I'm like, well, that actually does more describe my position, because I would find myself saying things, this God thing, whatever that may be, and that's basically atheism. So I'm like, okay, that works for me. That's fine. I'm a little bit of an apatheist as well, meaning I don't think it matters whether one would exist or not.
You think it's unimportant?
Yeah, completely. What effect does it really have on our day-to-day life? Apparently none.
Sure.
Well, that's sort of the assumption you're making there, right? That apparently there's no effect. But I mean, if you talk to theists, I mean, they will tell you that it does have a real effect on everyday life, and I mean that he's in control of everything. So if that God did exist, it would make a difference whether or not you believed in him and acted accordingly. I understand that you're saying that it's not, and it apparently doesn't have any effect, and I agree. Like, I mean, through my own experience, I would agree with you. But
yeah, I should add, I don't actually promote the apatheist stance on anything, because it's basically just saying ultimately at the end of the day I don't give a shit one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's my viewpoint, but it's not something that I necessarily promote, because it kind of kills the dialogue.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I don't have a problem with that then. But it's an interesting point of view though. Fabio, it's good to see you in the hangout, buddy. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm just watching the races, so I was paying attention, but I didn't want to talk because I'm actually watching the qualifying practices for the motorcycle Grand Prix of tomorrow.
Oh.
So you're not just watching people take left turns.
No, they go left and right turns. Yeah.
Oh wow, they actually get to turn the opposite direction. Gotta love it.
It's in Texas.
Could we call that Brett Keening?
Oh.
Give her the keen, son.
But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. I mean, 13th position it's interesting to me, mainly because I understand this point, that definition of God is quite difficult, is incomprehensible, and I can buy that. I don't find that position interesting for that reason. I find it interesting because it's shifting the burden of not proof, but to be actually to define what the fuck are they talking about to people who believe, So if they want to talk about something, they better be at least precise in defining what they're talking about. And this is regardless of the fact that it might be possible or not to define a god or a deity or whatever it is. It's up to you to make a proper definition and a consistent one. Then, we can start discussing it about. So, again, I find the atheism concept quite interesting, but for that reason, not the one 13 was talking about, which, by the way, might be the same reason.
Well, the secondary reason why I like the whole atheist label is that
I'll
it
be back
throws...
later, guys. I'm sorry. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. The other thing that I like about the atheist or agnostic label is that it really confuses the crap out of people that are theists. They don't know what to make of it, and they think, oh, well, it's not atheist, so therefore I can have a conversation with them, not realizing that as far as I'm concerned, it's actually kind of a harder position.
Well, I mean, you're forcing them to define what they've taken on as undefinable, right? I mean,
that's the point.
You're sort of forcing them to acknowledge what they've failed to define about their deity.
And actually, John, the funny part is that in forcing them to define, as you said, as was trying to explain, is that this is where the fun really begins. Because if you have a church which is all well defined, like the Orthodox in Greece, the Catholic, the Roman Catholic, stuff like that, they have a pretty precise definition of the God they believe in. It's been talked inside the church for histories, for centuries and stuff like that. So, I mean, they might get to a point which is kind of precise. I mean, at least they're more precise than the others. And then you can discuss about it. But if you talk to an evangelist or some, nutcase, I mean, this is great because they have no idea, because they can't agree with each other. So it's perfect. It's like watching three philosophers in a room. It's brilliant.
At the same point, because of the weird straw man stigma of this whole quote atheist that they hold up as, no atheist matches their fucking straw man. But if you can separate yourself just a little bit to the right or left of that position and have a different term to it, then all of a sudden they have to throw away their straw man.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Tactically.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of why I wanted to kind of go. I mean, when I first kind of came on YouTube, I wanted to be known as an anti-theist. But it just to kind of point, define my position a little stronger, and to kind of give my I don't know, my reasonings a little more of weight, right? It seems like the word atheist is almost too easily stereotyped by groups these days, and so we do face this sort of straw man. They've built this position up for us, and when we enter and use that term, it's like they've already defeated us in their mind, right? They've already had this conversation. There's no need to have the conversation with you about what you believe,
because they've already decided what you are and what you believe, etc.
Yeah, well, or at least that what you believe is wrong. So that's sort of where I kind of came with it. But I realized right away that, I mean, anti-theist carries a lot of negative connotations where I'm against, and people tend to think I'm against them, which is not true. I'm more against the concept itself. But that's a whole different topic, right? So.
No, you're right. You can't do that. They get it really personal, and it goes in a shitstorm really fast. So.
Exactly. So in a lot of ways, I mean, I think we're right to kind of try to define atheism a little more precise, at least. Big crash there, Fabio?
No, sorry. I'm really sorry, but sometimes to do some shit which I really can't. I'll mute my mic. Sorry.
All right, no trouble, dude.
What, did somebody wipe out?
No, probably just did. rough
No,
passage.
no. Just a really nice control in one corner, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think. Well, let's put it this way: the guy wasn't praying in that moment. He was trying to control the bike, which is, yeah. Praying will be useless in this situation.
There's a famous story that I think is most likely an urban legend, but there's a story about a gentleman that was sitting there and riding down the Autobahn, and flooring it, flying along, and then he decides, well, they talk about Jesus being your co-pilot, so he lets go of the wheel to let Jesus drive, and then crashes.
Yeah. Right. It's like that old story about there are no atheists in a foxhole. I mean, this is crap. I mean, if you were in a war and I've got a fellow soldier, I love him to be an atheist, and take the gun and shoot instead of praying for Jesus, to save him. So.
Yeah, definitely. I actually heard a podcast with an atheist soldier, and I mean he kind of explained that it's once you're in that situation, once you're in that dangerous situation, it's your training that takes over, right? I mean, you don't have time to stop and pray. You're not worried about people's souls at that point. And that sort of stuff is saved for later on, right? And in the situation, it is entirely muscle memory and the training that they've done that is pushing you through. And I think when people say no atheists in foxholes, I think they mean that when you're faced with death, it makes you maybe reevaluate your life, and that I think they're suggesting that you're going to come up with the answer that there is a God, right? Or that there has to be a God. And I think it's a fallacy. Clearly, people don't often, people in stressful situations don't come up with that.
But that's too easy. I mean, there's so much at stake over there that it doesn't really make a difference. It's like I was talking about it last evening. I make a comparison with the what's the name of that medicine? The not holistic, the homeopathic medicine.
Homeopathic.
I mean, I don't believe in it, but I'm willing to believe as soon as I see someone which believes in it, which takes an homeopathic contraceptive. If it goes for it, oh yeah, no, I'm really open to that. I don't believe it, but if I find someone who says, no, I'm taking an homeopathic contraceptive and he's fucking like a bunny, and I'm all for it. I'm willing to consider, and I'll probably, say, okay, there's something in it. Because it's easy, when you're not talking with your life and your situation to talk about, such great things and stuff like that. When it hurts you, when it touches you, it's kind of different. There's too much at stake to be taken seriously. Anything. I'm talking about really, literally anything.
What would happen to somebody if they consumed an entire medicine bottle full of sleeping pills?
They would die.
They would die. Has anybody here seen the amazing James Randi did a talk? I don't think it was a TED talk, but it was something along the line of a TED talk where he had an entire box full of homeopathic sleeping pills. He took them all.
Actually, I should note one thing. There was recently a homeopathic medicine that was taken off the market because they found that it held small traces of actual medicine. No, I'm not kidding.
I heard about this. Man, my girlfriend pointed that out to me.
You know what they call alternative medicine that works?
Medicine.
Exactly.
On a little bit of a side note, I don't know if you've heard of the atrocity of a movie called God's Not Dead.
I have heard many.
I read something. I have no idea what it is, but.
Well, I'm going to sum the entire thing up by the end scene, and I'm going to skip over the fact that the philosophy teacher apparently doesn't know any philosophy, and just go right to the end for a moment, because the end of it is hilarious. You have the guy that's he's the atheist, has his car accident, and these people come over to him that are the theists, and they try to get him to accept Jesus at the last moment so he can get into heaven. The guy ends up accepting Jesus. Yay! Then the guy dies. And you spend this entire time going, what the fuck are you people doing? Call an ambulance.
Yeah. Kevin Sorbo, he accepts God at the very end, doesn't he?
Yep. Well, all these people are trying to get him to accept God and praying over him instead of calling a damn ambulance.
Didn't you know that they left out part of that? That they left out a little bit part at the end where he actually names which god he accepts.
That I did not know.
I don't think I can pronounce it. How do you spell Cthulhu?
Oh, Cthulhu Fatagan, such a wonderful phrase. Anyway,
I have a picture that I had to actually download onto my computer when I saw it on my Facebook stream. It was like an octopus climbing up out of the water, and he's got his tentacles wrapped around a scuba diver that's trying to get away. It says, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord Cthulhu?"
But yeah, I mean, at least Cthulhu we have some kind of descriptor for. We have artwork.
Well, if we can go back to the Igtheism thing, in the declaration of its position on not only any God propositions, but where people kind of hang their hat on each and any God proposition, it's not that it suggests that others hang their hat over here with them, or that they've hung their hat in an improper place. It's just that I personally, as an ichtheist, choose to hang my hat here because you guys have hung your hats, I think, given information that I don't think exists yet.
It's almost along the lines of, yeah, my hat's staying on my head, thank you very much. I mean, until you can show me that there's anything to even hang it on, or illustrate what you're trying to ask me to hang it on. What is it? You're saying that you have something for me to hang my hat on. What is it? Well, it's loving, huh?
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that you're not stating that as your position in the context of kind of looking down on the positions that other people have taken.
No, not so much. I mean, the thing is, people are, it doesn't matter what God somebody's trying to talk about it. If you can't define what a God is to begin with, well, then what's the point of entertaining somebody's God belief when you don't even know what a God would be? It's kind of all-encompassing. Any God notion, what's a God? You have this notion of this thing that you're calling God. What is a God? Tell me. Well, it's this or it's that, and it's pretty and it's blue, and piss off.
Right, but you wouldn't take issue with somebody saying that, like, as it's been presented to me, this is where I would hang my hat on this particular God proposition, like Yahweh, for example, or Thor.
Yeah, somebody can sit there and say that they follow God or Thor or this and that, and I'm more than happy to talk to them about what their belief is and what their view is and what their perception is. But at the same point, if they're going to try and convince me that I should believe as they have, that's the point at which you're going to have to get to the nuts and bolts of what would even constitute a God. So at this point, yeah, sure, we can have a dialogue about their concept. We can have a dialogue about what it means to them or what it represents to them, and that's all fine and dandy, but don't bother trying to convince me to sign up for something that you can't even really explain. So at that point, it's just a discussion about it, and okay, no, that's good for you. That's fine. Okay, you can believe whatever you want to believe. That's fine by me, but yeah, don't think that I'm going to bother wasting my time, spending too much time trying to entertain your notion and coming to your side. I'm more interested in what you think it means.
So it's more an internalist thing rather than an externalist critique or view of other people's positions.
There are some people, for example, Gadfly, Augustine Camus, will use it as basically a stick to beat both sides because they're talking about something completely non-coherent. Because he's more the theological non-cognitivist, and in my case, it's more, I just think everyone assumes too much about what this thing would even be. Because if we don't know what it would necessarily, ask yourself this. What would constitute a God in your mind? What would a God be? What would it look like? What would it represent? Is there even really an answer for that?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. I'm just saying that in part to illustrate where I'm coming from with this.
Right.
I mean, because that, even when people try to approach me with God notions, that was kind of my hang-up. What would qualify as being a god? What would that even be? And that's kind of a real sticking point. I mean, you go through and all these different mythologies that have different spirits and entities and this and that. Well, what would make one of these things actually be a god, whatever the heck that would be? And how would that differentiate from every other spirit that may or may not want to claim to be a god? It's kind of the sticking point. And then I kind of like making my joke about Yahweh being little more than a trickster spirit, because the whole chariots of iron thing, and we know the little fey trickster spirits can't get near iron, so there you go. So, I mean, but we have all these different notions going back in history of like jinns and evil and good spirits and all these other things. The Rakshasa, for example, from the Hindu myth. We have all these notions of these different spiritual entities. Well, what would separate a god from all the rest of these? There are some theologies, for example, that have a separate creator that isn't actually, or creation event that wouldn't even be a god. So you can't break it up because, okay, well, maybe we have this one thing that shits out universes. Okay, does that necessarily make it a god? And if so, is that its only capacity? I mean, what would it even be? And if we can't agree on what it would even be, what's the point of the notion? And now I probably confuse the crap out of everyone. Sorry.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with anything that you just suggested there, but I guess I would I wouldn't quite take it to that level personally. Just that I'm comfortable making some assumptions about what people are talking about when they are suggesting that God X exists.
Yeah.
In so much as that I can say, well, whatever is included in that proposition, I'm unconvinced by. So whatever is included in the definition of what that God is, or what characteristics would exist within that God. I mean, like, that would be a long, convoluted conversation. So I'm willing to make some assumptions in order to kind of bypass all of that, because in the end, there are certain aspects of that God that are accepted as being part of the conversation and part of the proposition of who and what that God is, in order for me to weigh in on whether or not I'm convinced on what little information about that God exists.
What it ultimately comes down to is a thought exercise. Here's what your notion of what something that you could call a god might be, and to me, I'm sorry, just no. Another way to iterate this is, if you're in a very primitive tribe and a bunch of, we'll just say, Americans come and show up with their cell phones and their lighters and all these other strange things, they would most likely be revered as being some kind of god, because there are so many things that they seem to know and were able to do that you couldn't. Conversely, if a bunch of aliens came to Earth that knew so much more than us, would we sit there and call them a god? Well, at our level of development, no, we certainly wouldn't. That'd be silly. But now take this, and what it ultimately comes down to is almost a might makes right kind of viewpoint, that there's this thing that knows more than us, that's smarter than us, that can do things that we can't do, so we're going to hang this God label on it, and then whatever it says goes? Huh? Does that necessarily make it a god any more than would make an alien a god for knowing more and having more at its disposal than we do? I'd certainly argue not. So what would a god even be?
That's a good question. I don't know.
And there's the problem, and thus I must remain ignorant as to my position on whether a god would exist or not until I know what a god would be. That help?
Not really. But yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, 13. I mean, it's weird to choose ignorance, right? Like I find that's my hardest point, right? Like that
because it's used as a pejorative usually, yeah.
Right, exactly. Like I would almost maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just sort of reacting to the connotation of the word. But it feels weird to me to have the idea that I'm going to choose to be, I'm going to choose to be ignorant instead of choosing to endeavor to erase that ignorance, right? And choosing to fill that ignorance with knowledge.
Well, I went through my shamanic phase for, I don't know, about 15 to 20 years. And over that time period, I tried to figure out if there is a God thing, where is it, what is it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I came back with, frankly, the viewpoint that, well, frankly, I don't think there's any such thing. But at the same point, the word's essentially meaningless because you sit there and you spend all this time trying to figure this out, and then you say, what would even constitute a God? And you realize there's no answer.
Yeah.
And at that point, why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's almost like it's almost a statement of where you are in your, I don't know, this is going to sound a little Christianese, but like your walk in atheism, like where are you, how far you've come along examining that question.
I usually refer to it as a spiritual walk.
True. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know you don't, but there may be others who have problem with the connotations in that too. But cool. Anybody else got anything to weigh in on that, or?
Something I was thinking of. I'm sorry. I've talked too much. Go ahead.
Nah. No, feel free.
You never talk too much, JD. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of what 13 was just talking about. That you come to this realization that you don't know what the concept of God would even be after thinking about what it actually is. And then just throwing up your hands and saying, well, I'm just going to be ignorant about it because I have to be.
Yeah, and that I have to be is kind of, that's kind of the key thing that I should have thrown in there. Thank you.
See, where I almost take issue with that in a sense. And the first thing that popped in my head when I was, and I just instinctively went to, I don't think that I agree with that. And the first thing that popped in my head was germ theory. That at some point in our history, we didn't know what caused diseases. And I mean, I know we had some working theories that it was, demons or the wrath of God, et cetera, et cetera. But had we let our current theory stay put in that position, we never would have gotten to this point where we now not only know what causes these diseases, but how to combat some of them.
So that's the point at which somebody's able to provide a definition, and that's the thing.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that throwing our hands up and saying that we don't have a definition of what God would be, and then including in that we have no choice but to take that position because it's impossible to have a coherent definition of what God would be, is where I guess that roadblock, I guess, is what I'm disagreeing with a little bit. That we're putting a limitation on ourselves that getting to a point where we would have a coherent definition of what God would be or could be is something that's just never going to be.
Well, I don't know, but sorry. I don't know about 13, what he really thinks, and he'll talk about it extensively later, I'm positive. But, the fact is that, well, you can have your own definition of God, okay? You make up your own definition of God, and it's perfectly fine for you, and you can go ahead with it, and everybody's fine. I think that the 13th position comes in place when someone else wants you to believe in his own God. Then this guy has at least the burden of trying to explain to me what is God. It's not really. I understand what John said about the ignorance part, but it's not really ignorance from my side. I'm willing to accept it. Just please explain it to me. It's like when I go to school. I don't know nothing about math and stuff like that. I'm waiting for someone to explain it to me in a way which makes sense, and then I can work on the concept. But unless it's a personal one, where you can make up your own stuff, and if it fulfills you, you're fine with that. Go with it. Everybody's happy. But if you want me to believe in your God, well, at least the very first thing that you should be expected is to try to explain to me in a proper way, not something like, it is.
Then we go back to the everyone assuming too much about what this God thing is. To put it in another,
no, you're right. I agree. I understand with you. I totally agree with you.
You know what? I think I might actually have not necessarily changed the position, but adopted something here that if it seems as if when the conversation is about whether you're a theist or you're not a theist, I would describe myself as an atheist. But it seems as if I'm agreeing a heck of a lot here with 13, that as soon as the conversation shifts gears into a specific God claim, be it Yahweh or Thor or whatever, then you know what? Those roadblocks that he's talking about, I completely agree with.
It's assuming
but it's right. But his position is before atheist or theist. If you can, if atheism is the rejection of a claim, well, make the damn claim.
And that's a little bit of it. Basically, to put this in another analogy, I'd like each of you to try and explain to me what the life forms on Alpha Centauri look like. Now, the first thing that's going to come to mind is, wait a minute, what makes you think there's life forms on Alpha Centauri, right? We don't know if there's life forms on Alpha Centauri, so how the hell can we describe them? And that's kind of akin to the ichthyius thing of, until we know what if there's even life on that in Alpha Centauri, how can we say what it would be like? That's just idiotic.
Well, hang on. We can make some assumptions and assertions on that particular claim. We can extrapolate on what we know is required for life to exist. And based on the information that we have available to us at this time about what conditions are likely to be like on Alpha Centauri, based on, again, the available information that we have, can we make any assumptions about whether or not there is even a possibility that life could exist?
But even then, the thing is, you need things like, planet in Goldilocks zones and this kind of stuff, and we don't know if there are any planets in Goldilocks zones surrounding that particular sun.
Well, but just using the word
what I'm
life,
saying is,
you've created these borders that are very specific, right? The difference between life and non-life is actually something that's encompassed within that term. So you've used the word to describe life on Alpha Centauri, and while you're right, we're ignorant of what that may entail or the specifics of what that may entail. There's enough of a topic there that I could describe something and someone could tell me if that's life or non-life, right?
Well, yes, but the thing is that even then, hang on, because that's actually perfect where you were just going with that, because we don't know if there is life. So we're talking about life that may not even exist. And that's kind of the thing. At this point, it's just this complete hypothetical, and you're essentially defining something into existence without any evidence, and that's kind of the problem. What would it be like there? Would it be anything like life here? You have all these other questions that come before describing it.
That's right. No, I get it. I get exactly what you're saying
cool.
now. Yeah. Sorry. I thought you might be using it in the opposite way, actually, but that totally makes sense. Cool. Listen, I'll agree with you that the God concept is ill-defined, but I don't necessarily think that it eliminates us from having a position on it, maybe. But I think it depends on what context we're talking about this thing in, right? Just like life on Alpha Centauri. We can talk about life, or we can talk about life on Alpha Centauri. They're sort of two different topics, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we sometimes just push the two together, I think.
But even then, you'd need to have more evidence that life even exists there to begin with, because otherwise, it's just a thought exercise at that point. And to me, God seems to be just a thought exercise. More than any kind of actual tangible concept of what could or could not be. Unless some idiot's claiming that everyone is born with this knowledge, which we can certainly disprove, so therefore Sai and his crew can fuck off. They've already presented a falsifiable God. They're done. But anyway.
You see where I said it's a trap when it first came out, the term first came out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it forces them into. I mean, they have to keep their God general enough to maintain its perimeters, right? Like the second they give us anything that's falsifiable, we can point out where that's not true, right?
Which by the way is not being mean, it's just being reasonable,
I think so too.
Realistic,
yeah. I mean, just forget the God concept, okay? It doesn't matter. You want me to believe in a guy called 13 Eaton. You never met him, I tell you, yeah, he's a guy, he lives in Texas, yeah, what the fuck, I mean, yeah, tell me something I didn't know. Then I give you a telephone number and pay you a ticket, to where he lives, and you meet him, you say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, you're expecting something when you make it some claim. But and before you ask me if I accept or reject a claim, make the damn claim, and it has to be consistent with the claim. Again, there is the other problem that claiming that a motorcycle exists and a God exists. I mean, it requires two different mindsets and set of proof, but and different definitions. But still, it is the same concept. At the bottom end, it's the same concept. So yeah, it's a good trap.
Oh, Fabio, I think you may have just muddied the waters a little bit further for me. I don't know if you intended it, but you know what? If you guys want to move on past this atheism thing, I'll forego my question.
Yeah, that's all good. I mean, everyone's kind of been confused since it came up. Now, this as being an alternate position to the standard dichotomy was proposed about 1.5 years ago. It's like, oh, great, and then they tried to define it, and everyone just got confused, and nobody really even entertained the thought because it is kind of hard to convey. It's hard to explain, and I use a lot of analogies because it's a weird concept in that we're so used to thinking either you believe or you don't believe, and then there's this third position, so to speak, of how can I even make a judgment on whether I should believe or not if you can't tell me what the hell you're asking me to believe in, which is really the third. Yeah, that's
I don't know.
Exactly.
Make the call here if you want to move on to something else.
No, but I think 13, put it really, really well in really short form. Basically, atheism is someone coming to you and say, "Do you believe in God?" And you tell me, "What the fuck are you talking about?" This is atheism, And then when and if he explains to you in consistent terms what the fuck he's talking about, then you can figure out if you are atheist concerning that claim or theist concerning that claim. But first, make the damn claim.
Perfect.
Or just,
okay.
Or you could look at them and say that makes no fucking sense to me, and you're not explaining to me properly what the hell you think you're talking about. You're just throwing words at a wall and hoping that one of them sticks. Fuck off. This is not pasta. And I thought for sure I was going to get a laugh out of Fabio for that.
No, there was a thing going on, a wave, but I said, okay, I'll put a dam in front of it, because if you want to talk about pasta, we can, turn off the live session.
The whole throwing it against the wall thing, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a way. But, you can turn off the live session, and if you guys have nothing to do for the next 6 hours, we can talk about that kind of stuff.
Hey, let's not be racist against Super Fabio, huh? What's the matter for you, huh?
No. On that matter, you can't be racist. I am the ultimate authority in that, and fuck you all. Yeah.
He's Italian, so it's all about the fucking.
Yeah.
It's true. When you say fuck Fabio, I don't think anybody could ever flag us, just because you say it so well. I think Italians say swear is better than most people.
I mean, you would if you were talking in Italian, I'd probably swear so much that you couldn't believe. Because especially the part of Italy I come from, there is literally people which says 3 words and then they swear, 4 words and then they swear, and it's perfectly normal. You don't even notice in the conversation.
That'll happen.
And I'm not talking about fuck or shit or stuff like that. I'm talking man, serious stuff. That there is no deity which is safe from someone coming from Tuscany. Not one.
Welcome, Bart. How's it going?
Thanks. Good. Yeah, I came just in time to
Tell me about a new topic.
segue from atheism and still make a point on it.
Nice.
I like it from the epistemic modal logic kind of view, doxastic logic nonsense. But that may go above some people, so I won't go into it too much. But from justified true belief, for example, it makes perfect sense. If there is something that you know, then you also believe that you know, but you also believe that you know, and so it's a bit of a convoluted concept there. And it's really hard to expose it really nice in a couple of minutes without getting bogged down in rhetorics, and a name doesn't really help. But okay, whatever. But when you talk about evidence and you use the word that G-Man used, the definition that he used, a body of facts or information indicating whether statements are true. Then you get into the topic of statements and logic, and you can actually analyze the claim. So to even get to if you do or do not believe in the validity of a statement regarding a claim, you need to get one first, and that's where the confusion is, because, as been pointed out, the whole concept is seemingly incongruent, and there are a lot of assertions that people are seemingly making. That was my point.
No, it's valid. I think it's really that's an interesting point, actually. And I mean, I have similar issues with atheism also. But I think it does raise some pretty interesting points. So as I don't know, has anybody else is there anything else I should be knowing about or thinking about with the YouTube community? I've been kind of out of the loop for a while. I've been kind of hungry for news, and I'm never really sure where to direct my attention since so much stuff kind of passes me by unawares.
I was actually just typing in the sidebar here whether or not you wanted to talk about this. There is on the Fundamentally Flawed Facebook page sort of a conversation embargo that's being discussed quite heavily right now. Is everybody aware of this?
No.
No. Okay, explain it to me, please.
It was. Let me see. I'll just kind of read it off, short and sweet here. He is suggesting that we completely cut certain theists off.
Yeah.
From conversation. I can't actually read the pet names that have been given some of these. You can imagine why, I think.
Some of them are getting pretty bad, huh?
Yeah. I believe this one is Brett Keane.
No.
Who knows? Who knows? But I think I'm kind of sort of aware of that. I mean, listen. I'm never a fan of people who are assholes on YouTube. There are a ton of kind of trollish people on YouTube, but I don't know how effective a boycott is on people. I mean, we can just agree to ignore the people who aren't adding anything to the conversation, and I think that's a good thing to do. But I don't know if active ostracization is really the key. I think that only really encourages or sort of a sense of martyrdom amongst the troll. And I think that's exactly what the response that they're sort of looking for. It only increases the drama and only increases viewership, right? So I think it's sort of it's sort of a poor idea, and I like the motivation behind it, but I think that it's sort of I think it might, in execution, it's going to backfire on us.
I like Paul Hartley's idea. If everyone just, if someone crosses a line, then you can just block them, and then if everyone blocks people that they think have crossed a line, then it's going to sift people out, right? And people won't be able to join, and people that are associated with people who have crossed the line won't be able to join if someone has them blocked, right? So, I mean, that makes sense. But I agree, like everyone, I think Alex is giving good advice, but as I said in the post there, everyone should make up their own mind and follow their own path. I too don't I don't believe in telling people what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, the rationale behind the boycott, as JD said, is that those guys they're just looking for attention, So if you boycott them, you don't give them too much attention, and to them it's kind of a Achilles heel. On the other end, there is also the fact that if you give them attention and you invite them to hangouts, you know how it's going to end. Whatever the hell the hangout is going to be about, or whatever the development of the hangout will be, they will always claim victory. So again, it's a pointless exercise. So boycott, might work. I'm more of the idea of not giving them credit at all, meaning that if they come in an hangout, just laugh. Because that's, I mean, and it goes back to what 13 was saying before, Well, make a claim, make something serious, and then we can discuss. If you go on and say, yeah, I believe in this book, say, I don't, and that's pretty much of it, and then we can have a laugh. Because it has to be a laugh,
I think the point here is that I think it's about crossing of certain lines is what has led to this, right? So, I think that we should ridicule people that make ridiculous assertions, and but I don't think that that's what this is about. It's about a line having been crossed, as far as real world repercussions, and so I think that's what this is about. It's not about freedom of speech. It's about crossing a really serious line.
No, you're totally right. In that context, the one you're talking about, the things which happened some time ago, you're absolutely right. But that's a different. I was talking more in a general context where it is more difficult to make to boycott those people, even because we must be fair. They provide really good comedy, which is something that is really hard to stay away from, So eventually you're going to be dragged into the discussion and stuff like that. So in the context that Chris was talking about, I totally agree. But that's really specific context of what has happened in the very last days for really specific persons, and I agree with that. This has gone far beyond, so it makes no sense whatsoever talking about it.
There's another element, for me anyways, personally, coupled with the entertainment value that Fabio is talking about here, that it's really hard to kind of move away from watching, interacting, engaging in any sense with these people because of the entertainment value. And I'm really actually going to be putting my neck out here, going down this road. So at the risk of being unpopular with this position, I also think that the amount of conversation that happens about these people on Facebook pages that I think most of us, if not all of us, are involved with, I'm inundated all the time with people's opinions and positions and reportings of interactions that they're having with people, or what a person they take issue with is doing right now in real life time. It's one thing after another, and so it's really hard to ignore those people for that reason as well. And the people who are asking us to ignore those people are actually at fault for what I just talked about.
Yeah. No, you're right. But that's the problem with that. That's the slippery slope that eventually you're gonna fall off, because well, there is this day that you think they're talking seriously and you try to make a serious rebuttal. It is pointless. But I'm not saying it is pointless because of what they're saying. It is pointless because most of the times they're gonna win anyway. So where is the point?
I don't know. I can actually think of a time in my life. I used to be a fundamentalist, and I can think of a point in my life where you people in this room may have had the opinion of me that it would be impossible to get through to me, to get something into my thick skull, however you would choose to view it. Yet here I am today. So I think it's not going to be just one conversation or a string of conversation. It's a process.
No, you're right. There is that risk, but again, I'm probably making a lot of confusion. So I'm sorry. When I'm talking about laughing about some topics, I'm not really talking about laughing at the topics, but laughing at some people which bring those topics. I mean, you said you were a fundamentalist. I don't know you were before. We never met, so I don't know. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say you were a fundamentalist, but you were not completely and utterly fixed in your ideas. I mean, you were kind of a person which at least liked to have a conversation. That wouldn't be pointless, because even if at the end of the day we will both remain of the same idea, which is what normal conversation ends in, it's really it's really difficult to have a conversation when someone else changes idea radically. That will be I mean, there will be a point in having a conversation, but mainly because we are both seriously interested in what we are talking about. Now, if I'm talking with you and you already from the start say, I will never, ever, ever change idea, and my idea is 100% right, whatever you're going to say and how long this conversation is going on, I'm sorry, okay, let's talk about something else. And eventually we'll talk about it sometime later. But as long as you have this mindset, it's pointless.
Well, the process that I was referring to is be it conversations that you've had, books you've read, or events in your life, things kind of dig into your mind like thorns, and while they don't affect any sort of change immediately, you carry them with you as other changes and conversations and books and so on and so forth add to into the mix. So this process, those little thorns that grabbed in, help to shape and change the landscape of your position on whatever the case may be. So to kind of take yourself out of the that process for somebody else, I don't think that I could get behind that.
No, I see your point that I might change my mind a little bit on that. So yeah, I agree with that. I haven't fully thought about that aspect, and I agree. But there is still the fact that there are some conversations which the only thing that they actually fulfill is increased drama. These are the kinds of conversation where I think that a laughter is better than a 3 hours conversation. I don't know if you get what I mean, because it's really, I understand it's really confusing, but it really depends on the mindset of the people involved in the conversation. So this is what I'm trying to say. Well, if you might be the most close-minded fundamentalist, but if you say, well, I'm willing to engage in a conversation, and I won't let my ideas be a complete smokescreen towards what you're going to say. I'm not even listening to what you're saying. That might be a useful conversation. But if you start from the beginning and say, whatever you're gonna say, I will not only change idea because this is too much for everybody, but I wouldn't even think about what you're saying. I wouldn't even think that you're honest in what you're saying and there might be some merit. This is where I really have difficulties not having a laugh.
I think I understand what you're saying.
It's the mindset. It's not the argument. Sorry, Bart.
No worries. What I wanted to add is that we should also keep in mind that it's not just a conversation with the room. It's often just a hangouts, and despite that most of them are hours long and nobody watches them, there's still usually a handful of people anyway who will watch anything. So in some sense, you also just help spread ideas, and that's important too. Even though at the end of the day, maybe you won't influence the person you're directly talking to. Don't forget about the bigger audience.
Right.
That's true. And I mean, just for me, I mean, I find that the interactions are valuable on their own a little bit. I mean, there's definitely I learn something from each one, and even if the person is intractable in their thinking, I think that you can learn something from conversing with someone who's intractable in their opinion and finding ways to get around that intractability, or even just to question them on their beliefs and to put smaller seeds, not necessarily large ones in their consciousness, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I think
or even to be able to recognize kind of what Fabio was talking about, what kinds of conversations you should kind of pull out from, right?
I think that's true. I mean, I think there is value in recognizing that intractability and learning to laugh it off or become, or to the proper approach or response to that sort of attitude. And I think sometimes that's maybe what I'm looking for when I'm kind of seeking out these interactions, right?
Yeah.
How comfortable are you with name dropping on this particular issue?
Depends.
Okay, well I'll just go for it. I may have the unpopular opinion of actually enjoying interacting with G-Man. He and I have had conversations on the side. I actually, you know what? I consider him like an online friend. I've had really good conversations with him. We've talked about our personal lives, that sort of thing, and he's genuinely a nice guy. I think he shoots himself in the foot a lot with how he, kind of opens up his room and just allows anybody in, and the conversation just gets completely out of control. I could go on and on and on about the things that I think he's done wrong for himself and for others, but on a personal level, I've had interactions with him where he, on the surface, to others may seem, this intractable person, like we were talking about before, but I don't see that in him personally.
I haven't had much interaction with him, but the very first hangout I was in, I got cut off within 2 minutes, muted and all sorts of nonsense. But then again, what his main flaw is, in my humble opinion, is that the more agitated or preoccupied with a subject he'll get, the more he'll stop listening and wait for a turn to speak.
Yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say against G-Man except that he's unintelligent, uneducated, and incapable of listening. Other than that, he seems like a great guy.
See, now I would not support that position either. I would suggest that he's not unintelligent. I think he is ignorant on some subjects, but there are plenty of subjects where any of us would find ourselves ignorant on, just because we're not fully aware of the ins and outs of, like, for me, I'm a complete ignoramus on physics. But that's because I have no background in it, and I've got no education in it. Even if I were to try and read a book on my own, I wouldn't understand any of it.
Yeah, so it's only a problem if you thought that somehow qualified you to overturn the theory of relativity. That would be a problem, and that's what G-Man's trying to do with evolution. He's completely ignorant of science and evolution, and yet he somehow feels qualified to dismiss them as faith-based positions. That's the problem.
I must say that he made some efforts. I grant him that. My feeling on the guy is kind of mixed. I think he's a nice guy. I had a really bad experience with him when I was trying. There was a time where I was trying to explain to him what ecumenical really meant, an ecumenical movement really meant, and that's the main problem with him. It's an example, but I tried to explain to him, and he said yes, and he kept on going with his own definition, even if it was wrong, plainly wrong. I gave him reference from everything you might want to think about, and this, I think, is his main problem. And really, I want to say it again. I like the guy, so that's my my feeling. But I think that when he gets cornered, and I'm using corner in probably a bad way, but when he feels threatened, he just goes with not with what he knows. He doesn't listen. He just goes full steam ahead, and this is where most of the times he makes a lot of mistakes, and he doesn't appear as the nicest smart guy, which I think that really is, in normal terms.
When I pointed out his ignorance, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be omnipotent, or that, but when you're speaking like an authority on things of which you don't have an understanding, that's when ignorance is a problem.
Well, I've no problem describing him as ignorant when it comes to particular fields of knowledge. Where I take exception, though, is describing him as unintelligent. I don't think that's a fair descriptor.
No. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
But it's my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I don't think I'm the most intelligent person either. But,
I think maybe what we're looking for is the description willfully ignorant or not.
Well,
See,
again,
I don't even know that applies either. He has made a serious effort into learning more about, if you want to pick a particular subject, evolution. Where he is on his understanding of what evolution is now. It's nowhere where it needs to be, and I would agree with that. But where it is now is miles away from where it was when he first kind of tackled the
a significant effort would be, reading a whole book or taking biology 101. He made the smallest of efforts and came away without even a basic understanding of evolution.
Well, my problem with him, and again, it's what I was trying to say before, and I apologize to him in advance, because I really do think he's a nice guy, but there are sometimes that my impression, which is wrong, I know it's probably wrong, is that he shows that he learns and he applies himself in some topics, and you can really see that he went deep in some things, way more than that I do in some other topics. And then there are some other areas where he just sticks to some ideas which he would easily find wrong just to make his point. So it's a mixed stuff, He advances, and it's not the right word, but he advances in some areas, but in some other he just clings to it. But just to prove the point. And this is what really bothers me about him, you know. But again, you know, it's my impression, which is probably totally wrong. But.
Okay, so to sum up, JD gives G-Man a C, Fabio gives him a D, and Chris gives him an F.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with JD giving him the grade that he has. They don't call him the good JD for nothing. But I see things.
Eh?
Yeah, I see things differently. So.
Yeah, but I appreciate G-Man. I mean, he has a lot of passion, and he did put in an effort. I mean, he's not entirely clueless at this point, but I think that, you know, he maybe is kind of holding on to, you know, very, very flimsy ideas at this point. You know, it seems like he kind of maybe got scared when he started to challenge his knowledge, or what he thought was his knowledge of evolution.
I think we all have ceilings where we can take ourselves on a subject when we're taking it on by ourselves, and some people actually thrive on it. The word is autodidact or something like that. Somebody who is capable rather of teaching themselves. So I think not only has he kind of tried to tackle a subject where on his own he can only go so far. I think Chris actually touched on a point that I actually agree with him on, and I've taken G-Man to task on this, where he not only is selective about what external information he goes after, but the quantity and quality of that external information that he kind of leans on, aka one book.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a problem with that. I mean, like, and it's easy to do, right? I think when you don't have like a really great grasp of the concept to begin with, it can be easy to just kind of grab one book, kind of pull together a few of the threads that you understand from it, and then kind of just assume that that's a good enough understanding, right? I've been in that situation before where you're kind of approaching a topic without any real context, and your first kind of readings of it, you aren't really pulling into it, right? You aren't really getting the concept. You're only trying to piece together the concept from your previous understanding of it. And I think it's really easy to kind of make that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Bart would like to make a public rant.
Yeah, go right ahead.
No, not a rant per se, but I got dragged a bit into the YouTube hangout side of the debate around October-ish, whatever. Not that I had not been making comments here and there earlier, but that's beside the point. I was in a hangout and G-Man entered, so that was my first interaction, but I didn't have much of a talk with him, but I subscribed to him somehow. And around December, I heard him say that he was hearing more and more about the press-up argument. I went, okay. So I decided to join one of his hangouts to try and give him a bit of a better understanding about the topic, so he may decide for himself if it would be a good idea or not to go into that route. Suffice to say that the hangout I joined was with him and Ronnie, and we didn't get too far on the subject because I got muted by the time I had put out 4 words or so on the topic of what my theology was, in which I answered ichtheism. So yeah, that put him off. Like, so you're saying you're an atheist? No, I'm an ichtheist. Right. And I tried to give a bit of an exposition of it, but, well, that didn't really help. He ended up muting me, and, well, it didn't really end well. So I saw around December, and December is attempt to learn evolution a bit better. And in the process of doing so, he made a 30-minute video with a lot of questions not about evolution, because evolution is merely the change in a low frequency of populations over successive generations. But nonetheless, I made a lengthy reply and took the time and effort to bog that lengthy reply down to an hour-long video. Yeah, I repeatedly tried to suggest or give him the link and an opportunity to watch that, but he has declined so far, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and I think that talks to what I took him to task on about where he's getting his information to further his understanding of what evolution actually is. For example, one of the things that he really relied heavily on, at least at the time, this is back in, was it December? It was around New Year anyways, I think, when he came out with all of this. There was a poster that he used to, I don't think he has it anymore, he used to have it hanging behind him where he usually is doing his hangouts. And it kind of talked about the different types of evolution, like cosmic evolution, and I don't know, however many different kinds there are. Biology's in there somewhere, which is what we all mean when we say evolution. So he went through all of the components of each of these different types of evolution. And I asked him to find on the poster somewhere where it gives credit to where this poster originated from. And as it turns out, of course, you could probably have guessed, it came from a creationist source. So I told him that I asked him if he actually really thought that the source of this information was objective in its purpose and its dissemination of what's on the poster. And I actually got him to agree with me that it's probably not as objective as other information out there could be. So he's not unreachable. And I personally, I think that's one of the reasons why I get along with him. He's not like that all the time, and he's certainly not like that with everybody. And with a full room, I think it's impossible for him. But on a one-on-one level, I think he cares. He actually genuinely cares about people. And so when he's in that state of mind, when he's in that mind frame, an exchange of information can happen. But when you open up the floodgates and there's all kinds of people in there and the conversations gets convoluted, or the wrong people are in the room, he doesn't listen. He waits to respond. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, we know what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like Gary, but you're right. I mean, he does seem to get really flustered, very easily too, in a large hangout situation. So I think that is pretty valid to bring that up. I mean, how much private hangout time do you mind me asking, JD? Have you hung out with Gary? I mean, I had a one-on-one conversation with him way back, but it was online, and I haven't really had much contact with him since. So I was curious if, is he always kind of his very I don't know, rambunctious self?
Yeah, I've heard it described as passionate. When he gets that way, then that's when the walls kind of go up. I haven't actually talked to him in I don't know, probably a few weeks at least. But the personal conversations that we've had, like he's hit me up to ask me, very specific questions just out of the blue, and I'll get a message from him saying, hey, what do you think about this or that? And we'll have little mini side conversations for a few minutes like that. I don't know that I can. It's not very many. I wouldn't say that we talk all the time about anything and everything, but we've had enough of these conversations where I feel comfortable talking about him the way that I have been talking about him. That is to say that I consider him a friend. I mean, we've never hung out, we've never even physically met or anything like that, but the interactions that we have had, I'm comfortable in saying that I consider him an online friend.
I think part of the problem is that he's not on a quest for truth. He's the head minister at preaching to the choir ministries.
Oh, I see what you did there. But the yeah, I mean, it's kind of this sort of self-created position for him, right? Like, I mean, he defines how much interaction he has, or what preaching to the choir ministries entails, right? And so it's really that's more of like just sort of this way of kind of creating legitimacy for himself, right? But I mean more about I mean, is he able to? I mean, do you feel like he's moving towards wanting his beliefs to be true? I mean, like, is it about accuracy for him? That's my real question, right? Like how much does he care about the factual accuracy of it? And I think that's important when we're talking about what we're trying to get out of a discussion with a person. Like how much they care about it being true, I think is an important topic. I wish he was here to ask him that, but I guess you'll have to do JD. I'm sorry.
Did we invite him?
Yeah, I've sent out 2 invites to him since he came up twice, but yeah, no, he doesn't look like he wants to show up.
Yeah,
or maybe I'm sending to the.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, the easily flustered is the main issue, and maybe a suggestion already is to just pick a pen and paper and start what people are saying, start writing down what people are saying, just so you have a bit of extra time to think about the responses.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why I was curious about a one-on-one conversation, right? Because there can be a lot more time to consider your responses in that sort of conversation. So
yeah, when I made my judgment on his intelligence is based on the way he responds to what is said to him, and often it goes right over his head, or he doesn't understand what the words mean, or he misinterprets it. I think there's definitely a problem there.
Sure. I mean, it depends on if that's how you're defining like a person's intelligence or whatnot. But I mean, language comprehension is pretty key when it comes to these discussions, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's your ability to absorb and regurgitate information, and your ability to associate and think rationally. It's basically, I think, what intelligence is. IQ would be, right?
Yeah, and that's the really intriguing bit, because we all know the question of do you use your reasoning to reason that you and so on. But rationale is to be reasoned with. So yeah, just doesn't help if he throws up his own walls.
Yeah, I think that is probably pretty important, right? That at the very least, I mean, there's sort of this imperative to be open to another person's reasoning, like open to another person's line of reasoning, anyways. I think that would sort of suggest a certain amount of intelligence to me, anyways. to make the assumption that other thinking agents might have more information than I do.
Yeah, it's really funny though, because I've been in really engaging topics with a lot of people from all sorts of perspectives, and it would be all over the place until a certain bleep bleep entered the room, and everybody went. It wasn't G-Man. I'm going to emphasize that. But still a fundamentalist, and there went a sigh through the room, and within 2 minutes the topic was about the Kalam and ontology and theology, and God did it.
Here's a question for good JD. Is there anybody that you would call unintelligent and ignorant? And I forget what other pejorative I used earlier.
Uneducated.
Uneducated, yeah. Is there anybody that you would ever call that?
Oh my gosh. You're kind of exposing me as the uber nice guy here.
Uh-oh.
I can't imagine you ever saying that.
Well, you can say yes and not say the name.
Oh yeah, I'm not asking for a name. I'm just asking if you would ever say it. Or if there's anyone that you actually think that about. Because it seems to me that you would never do that. That's kind of just my hunch from talking to you.
I think I can go in, maybe not specifics, but kind of like broad strokes. As nice a guy as I may come across, I would absolutely have no issue doing any prison time for having killed a pedophile.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people who feel the same way.
Yeah.
But would you say what I said about G-Man about anybody?
Oh, about being unintelligent and what were the other?
Uneducated?
Yeah, would you describe anybody the way I described G-Man, or is that something that you
Ray Comfort
wouldn't do?
Ooh.
Ray Comfort's way smarter than G-Man. He's just more dishonest.
Well, he's both stupid and dishonest. I posted in various places a link to one of Comfort's Facebook pages where he chides some guy about, he basically says that snails and slugs and invertebrates aren't animals or something. And he says, you should read Genesis more, and every single comment on that Facebook page is slamming Comfort. I'll find it for you.
You know what, Chris? That's a good question. That's a good question. It's not that I purposefully look for the good in everybody or actively avoid looking for the bad in people. And I'm not like some sort of optimist and think that everybody's got good in them.
There, posted it to the subtle chat link in the side.
I'm all for. I like to think of myself as an optimist. I don't think there's anything wrong with. I'm a very honest person, and so I'm not going to pretend to think that somebody is give people more credit than what I see in them. Right? I'm too honest sometimes with things like that, but that's kind of how I've chosen to roll. I'd rather some people think I'm a prick than not say what I really think. Sometimes I'm able to mute myself, but I'm not going to, I'm always going to be true to myself as far as my opinions, if I choose to express them.
The only thing that's come to my mind is something that, and this may actually take the conversation into some fun areas. If you guys are followers at all of what Thunderfoot puts out.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was recent or not, but it just came across my awareness recently. Some woman named Sue or Suey or this Asian lady who she makes
bad arguments.
She's not unintelligent. Like she has obvious concepts of things that would require at least some level of intelligence, but she's just...
She's ethnocentric, I would say.
She bashes people and labels them as racist. But the ironic thing is that as she's doing it, she's being a racist.
She lacks perspective and self-awareness, and she says things like, "Oh well, no white man could understand that." And it's like, well, are you sure that?
Oh yeah,
you're gonna paint everybody who's white with the same brush? Like that's bigoted thinking.
She takes it further than that. She says that only white people can be racist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've heard that argument before.
There's a lot of people making that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Oh right, you guys have. I'm gonna get his name wrong.
David Sarche was.
That's the guy.
AKA Asian Dave.
Asian Dave.
AKA Fanatical for Jesus.
I bruised my face epically when I watched the conversation that you guys had with that individual.
Did he get an invite?
Yep, absolutely. All the usual characters did. But, I've been offline for a while, so I'm not expecting people to rush to my invite right away. David did, in fact, make that argument that, Asians couldn't be racist because they were that minorities can't be racist in the society that they're in. And I don't really understand where that kind of thinking comes from, right? It's an odd justification. I think it's a weird logical leap to make.
Right, like if I had visible I showed visibly that I disliked somebody, and they just happened to be a different ethnicity than me. But my reasons for not liking them actually was rooted in something that they have said or that they have done, or a political stance or a religious stance, whatever the case may be. I may have a reasonable reason for not liking them. For them to then turn around and say to me that, well, you don't like me because I'm, this ethnicity or that ethnicity, that's racist. Like to say it's because you're white, that's why you don't like me. That's racist.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of this weird delicate line about that, right? Where not necessarily pointing out that you're white, but by assuming that your whiteness makes you prejudiced against someone else could be a racist. There could be a racist undertone to that, right? Or at least a racist motivation to saying that. So I agree with you, and it's very much about inferring motivations of people, and I think there's sort of gray area there, right? I think that's why they kind of get away with sometimes making these weird claims, that they can sort of make generalizations about people's motivations in all cases, and it's very slippery logical. It's very slippery logic. Like it doesn't actually make any sense. But yeah, I wish Dave was here. I missed that guy.
I've not ever had any interaction with him, and I would be lying if I said that affects me on a personal level.
I don't think he's doing very well these days, so I'm gonna beat JD on this one and not say anything bad about him until we know that he's doing better.
Yeah, totally. I don't want to kick him while he's down or whatever. So.
I just peeked over on Google Plus, and it looks like drama's popping off all over. Redline put out videos about Alex and whatnot. It's too bad.
Oh no.
Shun me, I don't care. Oh my.
That's right.
Wait, where is this?
I know almost nothing about Redline. Who is this? I know he's like he sounds young, anyways. I've heard
he's a young atheist, and he's pretty brash. I actually like his style, but the problem is that he's been doing hangouts with Brett Keane and Alex. Alex wants everyone to not associate with Brett Keane, and so now there's this drama where now all of a sudden there's a riff.
If you, I don't know if anybody here is aware of it, but the logo that I have as my profile picture right now is because of, indirectly, it's because of Brett Keane. I mean, I chose to put this logo here, but...
I heard when he said that, that was really disturbing.
So you heard what he said?
Yeah.
For anybody else who might not know, I went in, I was put on the sidelines, and Brett actually told me that I needed to go, because it used to be a picture of me and my daughter making kind of a goofy face at the camera. And he told me that I needed to change my profile picture because, you know, his audience base, there might be some monsters out there. So, yeah, I spent like 20 minutes trying to fix it, and it had actually fixed, but on my computer screen it was still showing as my old profile picture. But,
that's strange. It actually actually seems like he means well there, but that kind of just strikes me as just slightly over the top paranoid. Then again, maybe not.
He doesn't mean well. He is a monster, and his friends are monsters. Who would even
lasted
think
about
of
half
that?
a minute before I got tossed.
right. Well, he's
deleted.
whether he meant to or not, he seemed to suggest that his demographic includes the type of person that I should be concerned about when it comes to my daughter.
Catholic priests? No, you said daughter, not son.
Right.
Yeah, that is sort of odd. I mean, I'm all for being safe, but that's sort of strange. And offering you all that free advice. It's pretty nice of him. Do you,
It wasn't projection on his part.
Yeah, I don't know that he really meant to suggest that there may be people in his viewing audience that would be of that ilk, but rather that I was completely irresponsible as a parent to even have a picture of my daughter up on the screen.
There's a few different things. It's one of his control mechanisms, right? He likes to have rules, right? So, there's a rule is you have to show your face unless, I decide you don't have to show your face, and it's it's this control issue, right? Like he wanted you to jump through a hoop for him, and things like that occur to him. About when he sees a child, the first thing he thinks of is something fucking terribly horrible that I don't even want to speculate about, right? He's a disgusting fucking human being, basically.
The thing that strikes me about it is that every example that you can take, like for example, how he did that with your picture. There's this one level where he picks his words so construed that it creates the most drama, and on the other level there's so much things wrong with it that it's stupid.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. First and foremost, like I love the Game of Thrones, so I mean, if he wants to take credit for me changing my profile picture, well, he can go fuck himself.
Keepers detected.
Sorry.
What?
What?
Sorry, I forgot to mute myself. My PlayStation 4 controller talks.
So it wasn't just your imagination, and I should probably apologize then.
I don't trust Brett Keane. He's another individual that I know almost nothing about, but the narrative that I've received so far about who he is and his past and his comings and goings on, the internet community. That alone is enough for me to say that I don't trust him or his motives. But I had my own agenda in going in on his hangout the other day, where the change to my profile picture was precipitated. I wanted to know about this kind of drama going on between Alex Botten and Richard Raspberry, some sort of doc drop allegation. You guys probably know more about it than I do. But apparently some audio clip is in existence out there.
There was no doc dropping because there was nothing to doc drop, because all the information that was being asserted was being doc dropped was released by the persons doc dropping themselves.
Yeah, you could have just asked us. Like, Alex recorded the whole conversation. We can just give you a link to the conversation. And Josh Shelley has been interacting with the atheist community for over 2 years using his real name, and been bragging about his novel called Wasp on the Moon, which has his picture on it. So there was no secret, and nobody doc dropped him.
I'll just very quickly, my girlfriend just came in with dinner. I've got to go. But before I go, my reason for going on there, I know I could have come to anybody on the Fundamentally Flawed crew and have gotten the story from them. But Brett Keane was like giving out this audio file to people, so getting it from him would have been able to, or would have allowed me to see if that audio file had been doctored, or because apparently he's famous for doing that kind of stuff too.
And in that conversation, actually, Richard Raspberry doc dropped his dad. So before, we only knew who his mother and sister were, and then he dropped his dad's name too in the call, and he doc dropped himself to Brett Keane, who is the one person that he should probably be worried about. So now Brett Keane has all his personal information. But Brett Keane was just trying to make use that as leverage.
Okay. Anyways, thanks for the cover. This was actually really fun. Appreciate it.
Totally.
Thanks, JD.
Take care, guys.
JD.
See ya. Bye bye.
That was fast. I was about to say goodbye, then he left. Oh.
He's fast on the button.
Keyboard, he got another tab.
Oh yeah. Cool. So yeah, it's I mean, this has all been kind of enlightening. I've caught up quite a bit actually. I feel like. Is there anybody else I should be watching? Like I know who else has been kind of interacting with the community. Is Matthew Bell still kind of roaming around? I know he's I see his calls haven't stopped coming into my inbox, but
Well, he made a bit of a faux pas this week.
Oh, really?
There was this bit going on with the real world effect of another person.
Yeah.
And during that hangout, he came in the room and tried to make it about him and his anti-atheism.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty typical.
Which didn't really work well.
Ugh.
It was a bit of the wrong place, wrong time moment.
And but no other hangouts or anything like that. He hasn't like I know he used to do some online didn't he, like broadcasting them, but
Oh, he makes hangout every time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got invites for him every time he throws an hangout.
But nothing. He's not broadcasting or saving any of the conversations.
Recently, he hasn't broadcasted all of them. I mean, he had a couple of accidents, some hangouts. And so, and strangely enough, and it's not probably, but it's surely unrelated. He isn't broadcasting as much as he used to do. Let me put it this way.
Yeah, just worried about outbursts or coming off weird or putting his foot in his mouth, maybe.
Outbursts weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can understand that. He can be his conversations can kind of get out of control a little bit sometimes. So he's a bit of an antagonist, I'd say.
Okay, antagonist is the way to put it.
Detractor is the proper word.
What?
Detractor.
Okay. See, we're dancing around terms around.
Say something about proctology for a second. Oh
well. Cool. So I was looking. Is there a broadcast going on with Alex Botten coming up soon, or is that not?
I think it has been. Well, it has been waiting to be on air for quite some time. I don't know if he started it already. And I saw that he actually invited.
A minute and 34 ago it started.
Okay.
I think there's already been a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. It's gonna be an all-day drama.
Yeah,
yes,
totally. So
absolutely.
if you guys are all right, I'll pull this broadcast off the air here, and it'll be saved to the channel. You guys will have full access to it. Anybody who is invited or anybody who is involved with it has full right to mirror it. And with that, I think the Left Coast Atheists will bid you guys adieu. But why don't everybody go check out Alex Botten's hangout? That could be a lot of fun.
Thanks for having
you guys there later.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll see you on the flip side.